Hello survivors and welcome to First Aid Spray, a Resident Evil podcast by fans for fans. This is episode 28 and in this edition we journey back into the mind of Paul W.S. Anderson as we conclude our reviews of the Biohazard live action film series with Resident Evil Retribution and the final chapter. This is Andersonverse Part 3. My name is Cyniac, you can just call me Cy, and joining me on the panel this week, if recording podcasts about Resident Evil films is hell, this must be the apocalypse. From Serial Box 64, it's Jordan Sugru.
Hello, folks.
All of his patience for nonsensical plot holes is dead, buried, and extinction. It's Fire Button Steve Valance.
Hello.
After the deeply infuriating main topic discussion at hand today, his Choose Your Own Adventure is going to feel like our very own afterlife. It's Moist Owlet, aka James.
Hello.
Being made to discuss 6 Resident Evil movies, I'm sure he's cooking up some form of retribution. It's Boy Wonder Adam Russell Reeves.
You're all going to die down here.
This episode of the podcast, like all others, was recorded live in our Discord server. Join now to hear the podcast early and unedited, as well as engage with our community, contribute to the show and other upcoming projects, and be informed first of everything going on behind the scenes. You can find a link to the server in the description of this podcast or on our social media accounts. You can also support the show on Patreon for as little as $1 a month, with various tiers, each with their own perks. Check out patreon.com/FA Spray Pod for a full list and the chance to create bonus First Aid Spray content. So shout out to our latest Patreon supporter. Thank you to Ian Patrick for joining the Patreon and, helping the show move right along. Whether we get to talk about great things or awful things like today, all of your support is much appreciated. But before we get to the main topic of discussion, so we've got the news, we've got our own news. There's just only a little bit on that front, just the latest videos. We put out a couple of cool ones. Resident Evil's deleted scenes. This was Steve poking around in the files of the PC port of Resident Evil 1 and finding some conversations that don't appear to be in the game, so we decided we'd put something together with that. And we also have a video out on 5 facts about tofu, which is edited by Mr. KDB from the server, making his debut as an editor for the channel, and you're going to be seeing him doing further work for the YouTube channel in the future as well. So with that out of the way, let's move right into a rather big version of the Biohazard news.
So our first piece of news, Capcom have put out 2 Resident Evil Village presentations at the Tokyo Game Show 2020. What do we think on this?
So I suppose before we actually get to that, I probably should have included this in the headline, but there was a new trailer dropped at the PlayStation 5 event, wasn't there? Which was... it was okay, you know, there's not a whole lot of new stuff in there. So I guess we all just assumed that we were going to be seeing something of much more, something a bigger deal at TGS. Instead, we got to see that trailer 2 more times and not a whole lot else. Steve, how did you feel about the TGS stuff?
Underwhelmed. Not angry, as some people seem to be very shake-fisty, but like a little bit like, oh. It's like,
yeah.
you go around grandma's for tea and she normally makes a really, really nice like shepherd's pie and she gives you a cheese sandwich. You know, it's like, oh, thanks, grandma. It's not what I wanted, but okay. You know, odd metaphor, I know. But, you know, it's, I mean, we live in the times of the coronavirus, so we have to like give them a little bit of leeway.
Yeah.
But at the same token, would have been nice. Would have been nice to see a bit more, because I think that a lot of people's sticking point is that they apparently had a playable demo for someone to play, but we didn't get to see it. We just saw them react to it.
That's correct. Yeah.
That's a very questionable PR move, if you ask me.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you know, taking it in stride, just a bit gutted.
Yeah. There was a lot of things in there to be wary about, and that was one of them. Not showing the game actually being played, despite the fact that it's being played. It kind of feels like it stinks of me they're falling behind schedule very much so, and obviously to a certain degree, what can you do with that, with everything going on right now? You know, I'm sure it's affected what's going on at Capcom, but the biggest question for me is why do one presentation on Friday and then do another on Sunday, which was literally all the same thing? Just very much confused me. James, how did you feel about the TGS stuff?
Yeah, I did. I made my opinion known in the Discord, but yeah, it was pretty underwhelming. I found it a bit annoying that kind of the really important parts they just kept to Japanese. There was no even any subtitles. It was like, come on, guys! Like I get it's the Tokyo Game Show, but be a bit more accepting of the world. But yeah, the thing that really interested me though when it came to both events presentations was that they alluded to, and maybe it was lost in translation, or it was let slip, or it's just an old bamboozle. But yeah, it was mentioned that this game is going to be basically the full story of Ethan. Right, and they said with the first trailer that this was going to be the end of someone's story, and I don't know if that was just a let slip or maybe it was just a gotcha, but yeah, that was kind of the only information I really took out of it. Yeah, I felt like while I was watching it, I felt like I was in I was back in my GCSEs and someone was doing a PowerPoint on on the projector and with the kind of the graphics and stuff, but yeah, can't really say much more about it because not really much was said.
Yeah, no, I mean, you're right, actually. It's been very weird from a PR perspective in the sense that, yes, his story will come to an end, which, they've now confirmed means Ethan. It's a bit of not a great bait and switch, since everyone was obviously discussing who that would be, and the possibility for it to be Chris was hanging there to be discussed. But now they've said that it's going to be Ethan that they're talking about, whose story is going to wrap up in this game.
And I also worry about it because it's like, okay, like we didn't really get to know Ethan in RE7. He was just you. He was meant to be like personified as you in the game, and you didn't really get to know much about him. And there's no point trying to hype up a death of a character or the passing on of a character that you haven't really built up because you don't get that rapport. That's not how writing works. So I hope they get us more connected with Ethan in RE8. I really do, because if they don't and they just keep it the same as what it currently is with RE7, then it's just not going to be impactful, and it just definitely sounds like a gotcha.
You mean RE Village? Come on, man, it's not RE8.
My bad. Yeah, sorry. I'm sorry, Capcom.
I mean, they did say that they want to expand on who Ethan is as a personality. At least that's something. And one of the only really cool things that we got to take away from it was some new character art for Chris, who looks great, and Ethan's sort of new design. You get to see him dressed up basically as Ark Thompson at this point in his new outfit, shrouding his face, but he has a head at least. That's new.
Yeah, stage 1 Chris looks great.
You're still assuming he's going to be a monster in this game.
I didn't say that.
Jordan, how do you feel about the old Tokyo Game Show situation?
Well, I think it's a bit of a compromise, really, isn't it? Because it's the sort of almost the show will go on attitude with regards to the Tokyo Game Show, even with regards to the next gen launch. I mean, I was saying a couple of weeks ago that I thought that maybe they were being a bit premature with bringing in the new consoles. How wrong I was, because they're selling out everywhere. So clearly people are ready for it, but Resident Evil isn't going to be ready for those consoles just yet. It just kind of throws you for a loop when you find out that they're also planning to make it current gen,
right,
as well. Which I don't know how I feel about it. It's kind of great because it's kind of like, well, I'll be able to play it, but we had the same kind of thing with Metal Gear Solid 5, years ago, where there'll always be that kind of dissent. Oh, is it going to hamper or hinder the actual sophistication of the engine, of the gameplay, and all of that kind of stuff? I don't think it will, but there will be that discussion. Clearly, Capcom think that it makes sense for them to kind of put it out on several systems. And that's their choice. But yeah, there wasn't much to go on the trailer. I'm kind of used to that with Resident Evil, that there's a teaser, and that teaser, as we found with Resident Evil 5 and with Resident Evil 4, can be very different to what the final product is. Obviously, that is is typically in a completely different world, a pre-COVID world, that lovely pre-COVID world. There's not much to see. We just know where it takes place. We know who's in it. I'm a little surprised that they're still kind of pushing Ethan. Nothing against Ethan, but as you guys said, it's not like he necessarily has a whole lot of character. He's just who you play as. They haven't necessarily built him up compared to some other protagonists. But hey, this game could change that. So I'm fully open to it.
Yeah, I think, and this is more a general statement about where we're at as an industry, but I assume the reason that Capcom are talking about bringing the game out for current gen as well as next gen is probably the idea that maybe not that many people are going to adapt to the new consoles that early. With everything going on, obviously lots of jobs are being lost. Perhaps predictions are lower numbers for people purchasing those new consoles, and they want to get as many units out to people as possible. That would be the clever business way to look at it, put it on systems that have already got a massive install base. But I absolutely understand the concern that also developing it for a less powerful system could have ramifications on the quote-unquote proper version of the game. You can see, I did a video, you can see me react to that specific moment as I was watching TGS, just incredulously, because they kind of half announced it. They were like, "Oh, we're thinking about doing it," which is a stupid thing to say, because if they don't do it now, then they look stupid. So, I guess surely they wouldn't have said something if they were pretty certain. It seems like such a silly thing to do, but it doesn't seem like they're completely know where they're going right now with a lot of things.
Adam, this is Capcom. They have ported RE4 to everything under the sun, so they'll port it. They'll be on both.
Yeah, almost certainly. And Adam, how did you feel about the TGS stuff?
I've kind of avoided it, to be honest. I was happy with kind of what we saw as a teaser the first time around, and other than this podcast, I'll try and go on to more of a lockdown. Yeah. Just because that's how I prefer to do it. I don't mind hearing details, but I don't want to see too much else. I prefer it to be fresh. But I do have a couple of thoughts to weigh in on just from what you guys are saying. I think that, it being cross-generational, I think that's just going to be the case especially given the current situation of the world. I don't think, you would have seen Sony saying that the new Spider-Man game and the new Horizon game would be cross-generation if it wasn't for this situation.
Right.
Those are big hitters for a new system. And to offer them on the previous system is kind of like we know that lots of people don't have money. So I see a lot of production houses and companies following suit. In terms of Ethan's story coming to an end, I think I said that's most likely what it was when we talked about the reveal trailer. I can't see it being too much of a big deal, to be honest, in my personal opinion. And I think that just kind of comes with a first-person game. They all, if you look at almost any first-person game, they're kind of a little bit more lacking in character, just because of the way you play those games. If you look at any Call of Duty game, they're super lacking in character for the person you play as. You're basically just a name, and you get shouted at by a bunch of other guys. And I imagine it will be pretty much the same here. I can't imagine in one game arc Ethan suddenly gaining some sort of great Resident Evil status,
Mm-hmm.
I think he's not a big talker. He's not a big talker.
It'll
but
be
I want
the
to
Chris
defend
show. You'll be something for Chris to shout at.
Yeah, no, that's true. Actually, it is often the case that the sort of characters around the protagonists in those sort of games get way more character because they're doing a lot more of the talking because they're talking to you about what's going on. So
you mostly talk to yourself in first-person games.
That's true.
So
that's true. There was just to wrap this last bit up. There isn't a whole lot of extra new material from the trailer to glean, but we do have confirmation of a merchant, I guess. It isn't going to be Granny Resi, as she's become to be known. There's a new character who shows up at the end of the trailer. It seems to imply that he's the merchant, so I guess that's the big takeaway of that trailer.
Oh, the penguin.
Yeah, the penguin, that's right.
Yeah. I wish it was just RE4's merchant again, so everyone could literally wink and a nudge and go, "Hey, how you doing, stranger?"
I don't see why it couldn't be either, really.
Yeah,
that would have been excellent. I didn't see it, obviously, but everybody always he's like one of Resident Evil's mysteries. Like what's going on with the stranger?
Yeah.
Like the merchant. How's he like? What is he? He's got weird eyes, but he talks normally. He sells you stuff.
Talks normally.
Yeah.
Bit of a stretch there. I'd have just.
Maybe he's the merchant's son. Okay.
Deep hole.
If the penguin is tied to the plot, right? Great, keep him as part of the plot. But if he isn't, Capcom, I don't normally advocate for DLC, but I would happily have a skin pack for the merchant, so he just looks like the RE4 one. Just saying.
I think what you mean there is you just got to buy the PC version because someone will swap that out with a mod.
Okay.
Yeah, after they do all the sexy Ethan mods, then you get
So, a slight salve to the moderate disappointment of the previous news. A new CGI miniseries called Resident Evil Infinite Darkness has been announced for Netflix.
Yeah, so on Saturday evening, this was accidentally tweeted by Netflix Portugal, and then summarily removed a little while afterwards, because it was meant to be the surprise announcement on the Sunday TGS stream thing. So without the context and just having the trailer, which has no dialogue or anything like that, we assumed it was a fourth CGI movie. But at the actual TGS presentation, they announced, no, it's a mini-series. It's like an episodic show that's going to run on Netflix alongside the live action. They're going to be completely separate. It looks to be starring Leon in like a mob boss mafia suit sort of thing going on, and Claire in a Revelations 2 costume. So start your debates now about where in the canon this is going to be set. But nonetheless, very exciting because, for one thing, we had no idea this was coming, even though, obviously, it was announced accidentally 24 hours before it was supposed to be or whatever. It just dropping out of nowhere. Everyone went crazy. It was nice to have a surprise like this for once. James... sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, I don't mean to just jump in, but it's nice that with all the people literally over the past couple months been getting really uppity about a Netflix live action series, that Capcom just out of nowhere, oh yeah, it's going to be a CGI one, and the fan reaction is the polar opposite for the most part.
Yeah. Some people think that it's a reaction to the reaction, but I don't think you can do even that much work in 2 weeks or whatever. There's no way.
No
right?
way. No.
James, what do you think of the Infinite Darkness reveal?
Okay, I do this all the time. I'm hype. It's great. It looks so good.
It does.
I love. I'm in a weird camp as well with CGI movies. Okay, and I'm gonna put another unpopular opinion. I liked Final Fantasy Spirits Within. Right,
Mm-hmm.
and it's kind of given me those vibes, in terms of its stuff. Obviously, clearly, much better looking, but yeah, I like it, and it's got all the little ingredients there. It's got you got Claire, you got Leon, you got whoever the guy is at the end of the hallway. I don't know who he is, but yeah, it looks so good, and I can't wait to get into it. And I'm Steve introduced me to the CGI movies recently, and I really like them. They're really cool. I'm very, very excited. To that, the broken virus vial that was on the floor,
right?
That tells you it happened ages ago. There was a lot told in a trailer that didn't really have much in it, but they showed you imagery that kind of gave you an idea. I'm very interested to see who's going to be voicing these characters.
Yes, that's my big question.
Well. Yeah. But yeah, very excited about this.
Yeah, lots sort of shown without showing anything at all, as you said. It's very odd. And also plenty of questions displayed in certain ways. Simple stuff. Why is Leon dressed like that? What's this house in the middle of nowhere, and why is Claire there? All those good kind of questions you're going to be invested to find out when you sit down and watch that first episode, whenever it comes out, sometime next year.
And I thought, like, although like Leon looks a bit different, he looks kind of very similar to the CG.
This is definitely traditional Leon and traditional Claire, as opposed to remake 2 Leon and Claire.
Yeah, I also felt like a lot of respect was given to Claire as well, but in terms of what she was wearing, but she still had a uniqueness to her. Very excited about it.
Yeah, me too.
I mean, it was only a minute long. It wasn't even that, because you had the outro as well. I think it was under a minute, and yeah, it was super, super, super cool.
Steve, equal amounts of hype?
Actually going to hit on something that the Mutant Man has said in the live chat, and I am kind of on the same agreement that it's a shame it's Leon and Claire again. I would like to have seen someone else take the lead of a CGI film. I know Chris sort of is the lead of Vendetta, but Leon's still there being Leon, blowing up highways, killing innocent people. Yeah, I'm not going to forget that bit. But no, this Infinite Darkness thing actually looks otherwise pretty damn appealing. Like, the atmosphere is there. This like old little, I want to say like bayou-esque house or townhouse in the middle of nowhere, and then Claire is creeping in. She's like got the torch up, all RE2 remake style, skulking, and then Leon shoots some random zombie, and there's a dude on the floor. It doesn't sound like a lot when I'm speaking like that, but I'm hyped. I love it if they can do a Resident Evil CGI like series. I mean, if it's a series, maybe they have to. They can't just go the all action route, make it more of a horror themed thing. It's got more atmosphere than I think any of the CGI films have for the horror aspect. Also, if I can just put a cheeky plug out, because I feel like they deserve it. Neptune did a breakdown on the REP podcast recently on YouTube. I would recommend checking that out, because he goes through it a bit more in detail.
Yeah,
it's I'm very excited, and I think this is like got to be pre RE8 but post RE7 kind of era, because everyone's like getting on and they don't look young. Leon looks like RE6 Leon, but somehow cleaned up and made a bit more. Yeah. This is going to sound weird, but this Leon I can look at and say that's definitely Leon. Whereas screenshots from like Vendetta, I can't. He just looks like beardy man with curtains. It's weird. This one I can definitely say that's Leon. He's scowling and shooting things with a gun while wearing blue. I'm sophisticated that way, but no. Snutshell it, yes, I'm very excited.
I almost wonder now if they just feel obligated to put Leon in these things, because he's in Degeneration, he's in Damnation, he's in Vendetta. So is it just, we can't not have a CGI thing without Leon in it? But I agree, this, if anything, would be a great opportunity to pair up 2 characters that have never been paired up before. Bring back another character. Obviously, everyone knows I'm a huge Claire fan. I'm very excited to see her back in the canon again. But there's a character who's been more absent, so a Leon and Jill CGI series probably would have been excellent, but that's just me. Adam, how do you feel? Oh, sorry. What?
What about Carlos Oliveira? No, it's fine.
Yeah, but which Carlos would you use? You can't put remake.
I still have a man crush on remake Oliveira. I'm sorry, Carlos Oliveira, getting mixed up. Yeah.
Adam, how did you feel about the trailer?
So I think we can all agree that more Resident Evil isn't really a bad thing. It gives us more content. It's something we all want to see. It's more Resident Evil. But I am a little apprehensive. I think, like you guys have said before, it's 2 characters that have, they've had a lot of limelight. They've had a fair amount of story. It's just, how do you slip in another whole story arc for these 2 guys?
Yeah.
Into their already pretty full, like, how are you still, like, alive story arcs?
You've had interesting lives.
Right, exactly. It's like how is it that there's like a core group of like 4 to 6 people that just are constantly getting into these situations? But I'm not upset about it as well. At the same time, I'm excited to watch it because it's more Resident Evil. I like the fact that there's a zombie there, so it's not. Hopefully, it sort of gets a bit back to its roots, as opposed to being, like super crazy. I'm sure there'll be some crazy bioweapons and stuff in there, but hopefully, it can kind of be a bit more horror focused.
I often, maybe it's just the way I think of it, but I usually think of installments with Claire with having some horror focus more than anything. She hasn't been in any of the crazy action-packed stuff like 5, 6, and.
What are you talking about, bro? She's in the Andersonverse.
Yeah, about that. But so maybe, but I'm also apprehensive in the sense that Vendetta starts with like horror and exploring of a scary house at the beginning, and then obviously becomes just John Wick by the end. So who knows? It's early days yet.
Do we know?
think the
Sorry, I was going to just. Do we know who's like from Capcom side? Do we know who's like the lead like writer or what have you?
I don't think they've announced any actual details other than Netflix 2021, and here's the very goofy name for it. That's all they've really put out.
Dang.
Stupid name as well, by the way.
Name.
Infinite Darkness. Sounds so lame.
Name.
Sounds so emo. But what I was going to say is it's annoying because there's some great Resident Evil that can be explored still. I would love to see, the story of the Umbrella founders like really fleshed out as a series. That would be super interesting because it's stuff we know about, but we're never really given full access.
We're going to be going that could make like way off of course here, but what I would love is like a compilation miniseries with every episode is about something completely different. So you can have that one episode, and then you can have an episode about a UBCS crew dropping into Raccoon City, and then you can have just like a whole bunch of like Resident Evil stories. I just feel like
if you did like the Umbrella founders, like how Game of Thrones it could be.
Exactly, right?
How those guys they're just assholes to each other, and it's perfect.
And finally, Jordan, how did you feel about the Infinite Darkness trailer?
Well, first of all, I'll say that I'm not necessarily that familiar with the CG movies. I think I watched the first one back when it came out, but I didn't necessarily kind of keep up with them because, to be quite honest, there is so much Resident Evil media to keep up with, and it's kind of been that case over the last 15 years, I would say. So, I mean, it's great that there's more stuff on the way, more stuff coming out. I'm not going to kind of like repeat everything else everybody said, but it's true about the characters. I mean, for myself, I've obviously said before on the podcast just how happy I was with the production quality and the quality and the writing of the acting. From the remakes, from Remake 2, Remake 3, you can quite happily watch those kind of cutscenes as their own little mini movie. And I kind of, I'm looking for, that kind of quality, with regards to sort of, tone for stuff going forward. I'd love to see that kind of side of it. Because I'll be honest, the first CG movie that I watched, obviously it's a fair bit different to the tone of the remake ones. I don't know. I mean, I certainly give it a chance. I really like your idea, Si, about having a kind of an anthology sort of mini series of some sort. Kind of a bit like how Outbreak kind of appealed because it was picking all of these characters up who were not the main protagonists. They just had their own little stories. I Am Legend, the film I Am Legend, on its DVD, it has a bunch of animated shorts which are sort of a prologue to that film, covering people from all over the world and sort of like how they get infected with obviously the blight that ends up becoming the focus of the movie. And it was really interesting because these are just little short comic style animations, probably maybe about 5 to 10 minutes long each. But they really kind of fleshed it out. I'd certainly love a show like that where, almost pulling from, all the kind of like files based on people in Raccoon City. You could make a whole episode about, one person, where they are, whether they're in Raccoon City or elsewhere, and kind of just follow them. Even if you're just following them from, the point when everything goes bad to pretty much when they die.
Mm-hmm.
It would be cool to see that kind of stuff, to flesh that out. It doesn't just have to be about Leon kicking ass. And, we all love Leon kicking ass, but, there's room for extra ideas, absolutely.
Well, quite appropriate that we got to talk about a new show / movie, whatever, because now I'm going to take us into, regretfully, the main discussion of this podcast. Although I suppose maybe not completely, because it's the last time we're going to have to do this. We're talking about Paul W.S. Anderson's Resident Evil films, and I'll look back at Resident Evil Retribution and Resident Evil The Final Chapter. And now, reading the file Freight Crewman's Diary from Resident Evil Dead Aim, the Oracle Dragon of the Crimson Head Elder podcast, who you can follow on Twitter at the Oracle Dragon.
August 27th, Tuesday, 2002. Yes! Today is my 100th day anniversary since coming aboard. But that's all I can write about since this place is so boring. I expected a lot because this is a luxury cruiser, but I've learned that there is almost no difference from working on a cargo vessel. September 4th, Wednesday, 2002. I finally have something to write about. Today, large cargo was carried into the presentation room, which is beyond the boiler room. Recently, many people are going in and out of that room. I wonder what's taking place in there. I'm curious because the crew doesn't have access to that room. September 6th, Friday, 2002. I saw a red mark through a break in one of the sheets of the cargo crates today. I think it's a symbol for biological and chemical weapons. Somehow, passengers are still going in and out of that room. Maybe there is a hidden door in that room, but I'm not sure where it would lead. September 7th, Saturday, 2002. My boss yelled at me today for not paying attention to my job. What a jerk! But I better be more careful since I really need to keep this job.
Okay, we have arrived. The finale of the Andersonverse trilogy of 6. Trilogy of podcasts about 6 films. You know what I mean. We're here to talk about Retribution and The Final Chapter. In that order, Retribution, the 5th Resident Evil film, was written and directed by Paul W.S. Anderson. It had a budget of $65 million. Was released on September 14th, 2012 worldwide. Although it did open in Tokyo exclusively for a few days before that. It also opened at number 1 in over 3,000 theatres, beating out its competitor Finding Nemo 3D that week. It had a domestic take of $21,000, and that makes it the lowest since the first film. However, worldwide it grossed $49.6 million, opening on its opening weekend, becoming the highest in the franchise, and it ended second overall after Afterlife at $240 million. It currently holds a 29% on Rotten Tomatoes and a 39% on Metacritic. I'm not sure how to describe the story for this one. It takes place in an underwater Umbrella facility, with going hard on the clone aspect from Extinction. The cast is bulked back out with actors that you've seen before. We've got brand new characters from the games as well. So basically it's like most Resident Evil films. But before we get right into tearing it apart, I don't know what everybody's first reactions were to this. Like, have you seen it before? That kind of question. So Adam, why don't you kick us off? Is this the first time you've seen Retribution, or were you unfortunate enough to see it previously?
I saw it last night for the first time.
Right,
And
okay.
last time.
Steve.
I can't remember. I'm sure I saw it at the cinema, but this one, like, just I might have watched it on Challenge TV when I thought I was watching The Crystal Maze. I don't know. This one I've seen before, unfortunately. I'm pretty sure I've seen it in the cinema, but this one's just like, that there's like a grey spot in your memory. It resides there.
Yeah, I've got that grey spot right now. I'm trying to think of how the movie even starts. James, is this your first time seeing Retribution, is it?
No.
No,
Unfortunately,
okay.
I've seen this film many times.
Fantastic.
Such a glutton for punishment.
No, and it's because when we first started this film club, I wanted to watch the entire series multiple times so I could truly get a feel for how bad it is, right? And it was after, I wanted to do it after as well, of having kind of the knowledge and the insight of the Resident Evil game series as well. Because beforehand, I didn't see a problem with them. I thought they were still bad films. I didn't think they were Resident Evil films, but I thought they were just, it's just an action film, But yeah, now kind of with the Resident Evil knowledge that I have now and insight, and kind of as growing up as well, and kind of getting more into media and stuff, I realize just how terrible they really are, and especially this one. Oh god, the last two actually. I can't believe the last one's called The Final Chapter. It's we'll get into that. But yeah, I didn't watch it in cinema. I bought the entire box set in like a few years ago, I think, of them all. Yes, F's in chat, please. And then I watched them recently, and yeah, I don't. What's it called again? I watched it this morning.
Retribution.
Retribution.
Right. Yeah, I didn't like it.
Nice original subtitle. Retribution. And Jordan, have you seen this film before the podcast, as in previously?
No, never seen it before. The only thing that I kind of associate it with a long time, and same goes for Afterlife really, is that it would just get bundled with 3D TVs and 3D Blu-ray players that are on clearance and stuff like that. It's just one of those cheap action flicks that are just kind of sold off, and yeah, that's all I thought really. I'll be honest. I think after Extinction, I paid less and less attention to the live action films because they just seemed to be going alongside my life. So I just kind of thought that one of us was going to outlive the other, and then finally, they announced the final chapter, and it's kind of like, oh, okay. And so I'm paying attention to it again now for the sake of this series. But to be honest, I just kind of expected it to just keep going on. So, as long as Anderson and Jovovich continued to be married, I thought that was just that was a contractual obligation that they had. Let's keep making Resident Evil films.
Death, taxes, and Anderson films. Well, my memory's been jogged since you said about 3D. I do remember exactly how this film starts. Of course, this is the second Resident Evil film with a big emphasis on 3D. So you've got that jumping off point from Afterlife with the big ship, and we've got all this slow motion. You get to see all this stuff happening in reverse. It's very bizarre. I don't know how good it would have looked in 3D at the time. Obviously, can't experience that myself, and I imagine most people don't experience it because 3D TVs are not really a thing anymore. And then from there, we jump into this bizarre sort of fantasy sequence, it almost feels like, where Miller wakes up with a daughter and she's married to Carlos, the businessman.
No.
First, we have to sit through 3 whole minutes of exposition.
Well, I thought that was a given.
I timed it. 3 minutes.
Actually, you missed even one of the weirdest events. It was not the exposition, which is obviously terrible, but you expect it at the beginning of every one of these films now. But the fact you get all that sort of backward stuff of everyone getting destroyed on the ship,
which looked hilarious, by the way.
But then it goes forwards afterwards. You have to watch it all back forwards.
I'll be honest, I did quite like that. I thought it was quite stylish as an intro.
It looks kind of stylish, but I didn't need to see it twice.
Yeah, I was like, oh, that's kind of pretty and stuff like that.
It just looked hilarious to me.
But I I think it's because it obviously it pulls out of the water, and you kind of get a greater and greater reveal of all the chaos that's going on, and all of a sudden, Jill Valentine's there and everything. But I was thinking about it, and I was remembering when this film came out, 2012, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I was thinking, well, you see, the previous year, that Dead Island trailer came out, and that was all in reverse. And I just thought, there we go. I think I know where the inspiration came from, because that was a very effective trailer. And I could be wrong. Maybe it's just a funny coincidence.
I know, I'm almost certain you're 100% right. Like
I would believe it.
Skipping right to the end of this film, like out of nowhere. It's never happened before, but you get a Mortal Kombat X-ray moment with some bones breaking. And that must have been around this time as well. So clearly, Anderson just seeing things, he likes in other properties and just nicking it wholesale. So I imagine you're probably right. There's probably a big rip-off for that Dead Island trailer.
I marked this down as the biggest Mary Sue in the series to date.
Specifically what, though?
That entire 3-minute intro.
Oh.
Well, okay. So, in preparation for this podcast, I wasn't on the previous Andersonverse podcast, so I missed out on Afterlife the first time. I decided to watch all 3 of these films in one go, one after another. And just say that there's something about this film series, and clearly not trusting the audience to have ever watched or remembered another Resident Evil film, because they put that exposition. It's always different, but they always put that exposition at the start of the film. My name is Alice. Are you? I worked at Umbrella. Did you? They were evil. Were they? And it's you certainly cannot marathon these movies. They are deliberately designed to not be marathoned. They're like bright colors on a poisonous frog.
Especially when it comes to the last one.
Yeah, we'll get to that.
The disconnect between we're definitely getting into that.
Yeah, but I'll tell you what, I remember the first time I watched this, I absolutely hated it, and I thought it was probably the worst one. I found so much of it, including the bringing back of all these characters, so cheap. This time around, I didn't hate it as much as I thought it would do. This sort of opening sequence is a bizarre ride of strangeness with the suburban sort of lifestyle.
Why was that sequence so long?
It's because he watched Zack Snyder's
Dawn of the Dead
remake.
That's what it looks like. Yeah, and then suddenly all the zombies are attacking, and the people are driving around with zombies hanging off the cars. And I didn't hate it, but maybe it's because it reminded me of the Dawn of the Dead remake, which is actually, like a guilty pleasure, if you like, of mine as well.
In isolation, it's a cool sequence, but as we have studied, Anderson's films, we know he's only got a limited amount of tricks, and one of his tricks is the fake out intro. Where Alice wakes up somewhere, it turns out to not be what it is, and then that's when the rest of the movie begins. Yeah, it was.
How many times in this damn film series is she going to wake up? I honestly, last night, I very much considered going back through all of the movies and tallying up how many times he's going to use that damn move of she gets knocked out, she wakes up. There are other ways to move your scenes. You can use story. Jesus.
Fake out, wake up, clones,
laser grids.
Laser grids.
Yeah,
CGI zombies.
Yeah. Again, monsters aren't explained at this point. We've got the Las Plagas in here for reasons.
No, we don't.
Those Las Plagas zombies that they call Las Plagas zombies are literally, let's just rip off Outpost. The Nazi zombies. They're obviously they're Soviet troops, but they are carbon copies of the Outpost zombies, just in a different set of clothes.
Oh yeah, and Umbrella logos as well. That's another one of his. Even in people's eyes now.
Did you? Because I, interestingly enough, I watched these movies on 1.2 speed. Right, because
that is galaxy brain right there. Why did I do that?
The whole way through, and it's just so jarring. I know. I obviously I was playing at 1.2 speed, but when you play at 1.2 speed, you realize just how many cuts the stupid choreography scenes have. right? They have
Yes.
like it's like cut of one kick. It's like Liam
so
Neeson
many
in
jump
Taken.
cuts. So many jump cuts. It's insane.
It's horrible to
He
watch.
took that from Transformers. He did Transformers, right? No, wait.
No, that was Michael Bay.
That was Michael Bay. That movie is insane for jump cuts as well. It's just...
I'm still in awe of the power move of 1.2 speed. I have to do this again. It's like
You're a fucking genius. And for this one, that's basically watching it at normal speed because of the amount of slow motion used.
I mean, to give credit to Paul W.S. Anderson, for one thing, he certainly loves a certain industry and being able to provide jobs for so many people over the course of his 6-film history. You know, loads of people, had their employment based upon special effects and set design and makeup and all of that stuff. That's all great, and those things are actually quality assets throughout the films. So he absolutely loved those guys. He clearly hates his editor because here's 600 shots. Of like one fight sequence from the final chapter. Here you go, Mr. Editor. You've got to try and turn this into 26 seconds of footage, Good luck. There's so many shots. It almost gives you whiplash.
If only the fight scenes lasted 26 seconds.
Well, what kind of speed do we need to have that on to make them 26 seconds?
Right.
But it's funny that you say that because there's that, but we're talking about all the reusing of the same tropes over and over again, like the CGI maps and the waking up and laser grids and everything else. But this film uses loads of footage from the previous ones as well, including, so when Alice does a waking up trick and eventually sort of gets out of this little cell she's in, she's walking through a simulation of Tokyo, essentially, and
entirely in slow motion for like 10 minutes.
Right. But then there's this whole segment with the girl in the rain or whatever it is with all the umbrellas and stuff that's just ripped directly from the previous film. Now it has context, I guess, this time when they show it. It's so weird. It's like not like they planned that ahead. Of course not. But it's like... did he write as he was writing? I was like, oh, cool. That thing I've already filmed would actually fit in better here. I'll just reuse it. It's so weird.
I think he did plan it because Afterlife and Retribution, obviously they take one after another straight away. So I think he must have wrote them at the same time. So he probably knew that sequence was going to be at the start of the previous film. It's going to be the start of this film. Film it at the same time, obviously kind of diverge in exactly, what purpose each of them lends to their respective films. But yeah, I think he probably would have just done that because it's not like they necessarily released too far away from each other. Their productions probably would have crossed over. It's clever in one way because it's kind of like, well, you can turn, two productions into one, but at the same time, especially if you're watching them one after another, it does feel like deja vu. It's like, wait, why are we doing this again? Mm-hmm. But I mean, that is the whole point of the film, isn't it? If there is a point to the film, it's to escape these simulations. I didn't realize that was going to be the entire film. It just keeps going.
Yes, the plot of this film is get from inside of a base to outside of a base.
Yes.
That is literally the plot of this movie.
I didn't understand any of that because it was like we literally in his previous movie Extinction. Like I know I'm like talking to a wall here when it comes
his
to this.
His previous movie was Afterlife, not to be mean.
But no, I mean Extinction. Like in Extinction, he proves that Umbrella doesn't give a damn and will just use what they want against the world. Why would they make a lab to do this? But I mean, I'm trying to bring sense to a nonsensical story, so...
Yeah, that's the thing, and obviously we don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves, but it's hard to really care about these bits where it's like, oh, actually, we've got this so we could simulate an outbreak in all the major cities of the world and then sell the T-virus to the rivals. It's hard to really care about any of that when you know the reason for the T-virus and all the backstory is going to get changed the next time it comes up anyway, because it's gone through so many iterations already, and we'll get to the big retcon movie later. But, stuff like that, you just like, oh, okay, yeah, all right.
It's not time for teal facts yet.
What's so funny about that as well is that obviously we've talked about the Silent Hill films now that will or won't be out for the public depending on when you listen to this because it's Patreon exclusive for a little while. So coming directly off of the second Silent Hill film into this,
I miss it, Si. I miss Silent Hill Revelation.
Do you know what? I had fun with this movie. I was not nearly as bad as Silent Hill Revelation for me because this actually had some stuff in it. Like there was different locations and stuff. Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
The underwater.
there's a lot happening. Yeah.
Yeah, there's stuff going on to keep you occupied.
Yes, there is. There is stuff going on. There's one thing that isn't going on is plot.
No, it is just a ridiculous thrill ride type thing. I just love that the underwater facility is basically just Anderson going, "Oh, I've destroyed the entire world in the last few films, and I don't really know where to go next, so I'm just going to seal everybody underwater."
But by the way, that is another trademark of Paul W.S. Anderson. At some point, at any point in the film, there will be a big pan out from wherever the environment is, and it will pan out to some mega structure or some destroyed state. It's always a massive pan out to some kind of massive CG destruction landscape. And that's exactly what's happened there. You could probably, if you went over the films, you could probably line up all of these different shots, which are literally just a pan out to a decimated city or an underwater lab or all of that kind of stuff. To be fair, there is a little bit of plot. I think I counted it's maybe about like half an hour in.
Yeah, that's one of my notes. It's 30 minutes.
Yeah, you finally see Wesker, and he gives the most bare bones plot summary of what you're going to see for the remaining hour, and it is get out of this place. I'm working with you now. What? It's like it's so strange. Like, oh, allegiances don't matter anymore. Listen, you've got to get out of the Umbrella facility. I know I'm Umbrella, but whatever. I mean, this film is basically Resident Evil: The Crystal Maze. It's just going from different zone. Oh, you're going to the Russian zone, and now you're going to New York, and now you're going back to Tokyo, and back and forth and back and forth. It is a lot of fun as far as sort of like variety is concerned, and I certainly appreciated it more after Final Chapter. But it feels so aimless, despite the fact that the only aim of the movie is to get out of there. It just feels like, what am I doing? Why are we still here? It's like, why is nobody pulling that spider off of Jill Valentine? Get that solved.
Let's get this out there. What a horrible actress.
Yeah.
I mean, it was unwatchable almost whenever she spoke. It was just
great
horrible.
In 3. Oh, she was great in 2, technically. Yeah. She was great in 2.
Yeah.
As Jill in this, she's unrecognisably crap.
Yeah, she is awful, and the costume design isn't great either. She looks more like Zero Suit Samus than she does Resident Evil 5 Jill.
It's terrible.
Whenever she's doing the shooting thing, she's doing these weird muscle flexes as well, like trying to hit fire revolvers with machine guns.
Yeah. She just looks so unnatural and speaks so unnaturally, and she only ever speaks when she's like firing a gun, so you can never really hear it, but it sounds terrible.
When I actually first saw her in the film, I actually kind of I freaked out for a second because I was just kind of like, wait, Jill's in this? And then the film told me that Jill was in the past movie. I was like, what? I just watched the past movie. I didn't even see her. Apparently, I guess I must have looked away for one stretch of 30 seconds to sleep or run away. I don't know. And apparently, Jill Valentine was in Afterlife. I do not remember her.
I think
from what I can understand, she only had one scene.
Yeah, I think it's a post-credit scene.
It's a post-credit. No wonder I missed it.
Amazing.
I
absolutely
went
amazing.
straight on to the next one.
I don't think we even talked about it last time.
Of course,
so.
it's Paul W.S. Anderson just shoehorns her in.
Isn't it the only time they've done a post-credit scene in a Resident Evil film? In a live action
I
one,
think
anyway.
so.
I did check Final Chapter just in case there was any kind of mild threat of trying to continue this.
To bring a little bit of positivity to the movies, right? Again, because this is kind of consistent with every time we see this guy, but Wesker is good.
Yeah, actually,
like him.
that's my top note for characters, is
Like-
that Sean Roberts' Wesker impression has gotten better.
There's a
then to bring
reason
it-
for that,
but then,
though.
but then to bring it back down, who the throws away a deagle? Who does that for a knife? Who does that? Anyway, moving on.
Remember that we have been shaped by Wesker's hammy performance in the games.
Mm.
So
True.
that's why we're completely on board with Wesker being a ham in the movies.
Mm.
Absolutely.
We love it. We know that's the Wesker we love, and that's the Wesker we want. Unfortunately, it doesn't translate to all the other characters.
That's how I felt when I watched the Extinction and I saw Wesker in that in a very kind of small cameo. I was just kind of like, oh, it's Wesker, and like it just immediately kind of resonated, and it was cool. But yeah, he's the only character who kind of stays close to the person he's supposed to be based on. And then he's there throughout the rest of the series. Then yeah, he's good, but it's so strange how the allegiances change for Wesker. And he feels like he's got an even bigger role in this universe than he does in Resident Evil. Does that feel right?
Yeah, in a way.
And given that, his death is laughable.
Oh, yeah, well.
But again, that's coming.
So I basically just let everybody just go at it instead of trying to lead the conversation there. We just rambled away for ages. So I'm going to go around and ask everyone what they sort of felt about the quote-unquote plot. Steve, how did you feel about the story, the pacing, and all that?
There was a pace, there was a story. No, I'm kidding. Honestly, compared to, like, this is literally under the lens of the last film we watched for the podcast, which was Silent Hill Revelations 3D.
Mm-hmm.
It was great.
Yeah.
But, you know, that's a very, 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 can we like copy paste this about a couple 2,000 times, low bar to beat. You know, so I don't even know what to really say, because it's like, it was a film that you kind of, my eyes just glazed over, and then the credits rolled. I thought, that could have done with Richard O'Brien being in it at some point, you know, for, you know, the Crystal Maze. No, I ain't got praise for this film. The plot is complete nonsense in that let's just stick some Resident Evil characters in our little our little test environment so we can have lots of wacky shenanigans and have car chases and things explode, and let's rip off as many different like horror related media as we can along the way. You know, if I had to give it credit, I did appreciate that we had some variety, but it feels so forced and fake. I mean, they can't even figure out a new final boss for their film, so they throw a bloody liquor in.
Yeah.
Let's just make it like twice as big. Ooh. I on my latest rewatch, I had the weirdest vibe of, it's Bloodborne Nemesis with the skull cap removed. You know, which is ironic, really. Horrible look at Remake 3 there. So Alice basically gets kidnapped. They put her in a lab, and then Red Queen decides we've got to lock her back down because she's escaped, or kill her. And that slowly just changes to let's just kill her. Jill's along for the ride. She's got some red shirts that are like Clones of the original SWAT team, sanitation team.
Yeah.
It drags. It meanders, much like me trying to figure out how to explain it. I'm just meandering through a sentence.
What's so funny about that liquor bit is, unfortunately, it starkly made me remember the first film and even up to Extinction, where they tried to explain things. The liquor, it was a sentence, but they say, you know, this is the result of T-virus being directly injected into living tissue. And in Extinction, they have the smart zombies because they wanted 28 days later start running zombies and stuff. So they had the whole bub from Day of the Dead thing, and that became sprinting zombies and stuff. But by this point, yeah, you've got the zombies with chainsaws and rocket launchers and driving cars and stuff, and Las Plagas without any explanation and stuff. So the liquor inclusion just kind of made me go, do you know what? Those old ones weren't as bad. And these in terms of this is just throwing stuff at the wall for the sake of it and seeing what sticks, you know. James, how did you feel about the plot overall?
I have a specific note written down. This film is just a giant masturbatory celebration of Anderson's previous movies.
It kind of is, yeah.
As I was watching Retribution, that's every single scene was just a repeat. I know we've already said this, but it's a repeat of the previous movies, and it wasn't fun because of that. Yeah, I've already said it. Like I didn't like
Barry Burton and Leon Kennedy and Ada Wong are in there, James.
But listen, okay, Barry Burton. I know we got some people in the chat who will not agree with me. Barry Burton was done dirty, okay? They waited an hour and 2 minutes to say his goddamn name.
Oh, no, I think everyone was done dirty. Maybe not Ada, but that's only because they got a voice actress to do it.
That's right.
And then,
No, Ada was very subdued.
Yeah.
He played very straight for Ada Wong. Leon and Barry, though, yeah, they were done bad. They were like porn parody versions of Barry Burton and Leon.
Dude, you hit the nail on the head.
And it's not like there aren't actors that I would personally, choose for Barry and Leon. They certainly weren't it. And it's not that I have anything against the actors. In fact, the actor who played Barry, I've seen him in other things. He was in Lost and stuff like that. He's great. I think he's maybe, even then he's sort of like a bit too young for Barry. I always think that Barry's kind of, slightly older, kind of like looks
older
the
and
rest
bigger.
Of the group. Yeah, older and bigger. I'm gonna forget his name. Off Stranger Things.
David Harbour.
Yeah, he is. He's Barry Burton to me. Like, if did a live action Resident Evil, that would be my pick.
100%. I agree.
Yeah. So in conclusion, I didn't know. Didn't like.
Before we get to characters, we'll just keep going around on plot. Adam, what was your general sum up of the pacing and the plot?
I mean, the pacing was fine. It's a movie that moves. It doesn't really let up, and I guess that's got to be to its credit, because otherwise it would be insufferable. But there's no plot. I mean, let's just get this out there. There isn't any plot. It's literally 30 minutes in, and Wesker's like, you have to escape the facility. And I assumed that was happening anyway, when you wake up in a facility that you're trapped in. So it was, it was just a case of,
I just
they're
live
actually
here
going to
now.
drag this out for the entire movie? Okay.
Yeah.
It's... And then, it's so funny because in the second movie, I don't even remember. Another thing with these damn movies is you never know which one is which. Just number them. I think the second one is the one that's kind of based around Resident Evil 3, right?
Right.
Yeah.
But then Mila Jovovich gets to take Jill's spot.
Basically.
And in this one, there's a scene from Resident Evil 4 completely lifted with Ada and Leon when they meet in the room and she butterfly kicks the gun and then he runs with the knife to the throat. And they do that exact scene. And now it's Mila that once again gets that scene.
Oh, I just remembered. Leon got put into horny jail by Ada.
He sure did.
Yeah, he did, yeah.
Leon, sexual harassment Kennedy.
Like Jordan was saying, he's a certain type of actor. How much money and space does Umbrella have?
All of it.
They built blocks of not only did they build blocks of every city, they filled them with 100% perfect clones. What the hell are they doing? Why are they
My favorite part of
this
that
ridiculous narrative of wanting this stupid virus?
My favorite part about that is when they do the zoom out map thing that they love so much. The one called Suburbia is bigger than any of the city ones, which makes no sense whatsoever. Just generic Suburbia, that's bigger than Moscow. Okay, whatever you say.
I like to think that the Truman Show was also an umbrella project.
No, listen. Don't pull the Truman Show into this. do not taint it with Paul W.S. Anderson.
The funny thing is you were like as much as we like Ada Wong looked the part, which is probably why we're giving her some slack, but realistically, like all she does is expo for what the film is already telling us as well. Like at one point he's like, Wesker's on the screen and they when you've just met Ada and he's like, you know, whoever is coming for you now. And then Ada says the exact same thing directly after him. She's like, they're coming for us now. and she does that throughout the whole movie. All she does is just expo what's happening to the audience who's already watching what's happening.
The thing about Ada is it's irritating because they did get the actual in-game voice actor. So that's the only time someone who actually plays the character gets to play the character in the film.
But the voice acting is so much better than what we get here. She doesn't have the sass she has as the video
script,
game. She doesn't have any of that snark or
she's not being directed in the same way.
Cutting edge that she has.
Well,
she doesn't have any of it.
Worst of all is when she first appears, and you said about that scene, and even Alice is like, "Oh, I know who you are. You're Ada Wong, one of Wesker's top operatives," or whatever nonsense she says. And then about 8 minutes later, they're in Tokyo. There's these two sort of executioner Mangini type things, and Ada Wong hides in a bus. She's one of the top operatives, and then she goes and cowers in a bus. You know, it's absolute nonsense.
Boo.
I think what really sums this plot up is like I'm going to do a little bit of a spoiler and I'm going to jump to the end of the movie, but Wesker appears on screen at the beginning and tells her, hey, like Umbrella effed up and everyone's dead and we kind of need you now. But as we know from the end and from from the next movie, Wesker is still working for Umbrella. So Wesker wants to capture Alice. So what he does is he gets her out of a facility where she's completely captured in order to capture her. That's the plot.
Yeah, because the whole thing is, hey, we need to work together now, finally. And then in the final film, it's, actually, that was a trap. She was trapped an hour and a half ago.
You already had her in a sealed room.
Absolute nonsense.
Not for the first time, let's be honest. Umbrella, the worst. Also, this was the movie where they just said, we never need to reload. She has those two machine pistols the entire film, constantly shooting them. She doesn't reload a single time.
And some of those pistols are double-barreled. So
let's not even get into those.
Future.
That's the next film.
The ammo is being spent pretty quickly.
That is the next film, but yes, it is horrible.
But what I would say, about the plot before we move on is the fact that Afterlife felt like it didn't feel like a sequel to Extinction. It felt like almost like a DLC to Extinction. It kind of finished off what. The whole point of what they were trying to do, kind of get to the safe haven. And then Retribution feels like a DLC to Afterlife. They never feel like they're getting to the logical conclusion that Extinction was spelling out, we're coming for Wesker, and we're coming to, finish it off. Because it's always a case of a fake out. It's always a case of Wesker gets away, or even if he gets killed, he gets away again. It's constantly dangling this Wesker carrot throughout these last three, films, especially. And this film, despite the fact that I think it's one of the more entertaining out of the six, it does not go anywhere fast. It's just a kind of a case of we have a lot of action set pieces. I swear that Paul Anderson must just sit down and actually think, okay, what do I want in this film? What kind of things do I want to do? Or he's probably just playing some of the Resident Evil games, and he's like, yeah, I want my wife to do that. I want my wife to do that. And then he just writes a big old list, and then says, okay, I need it. I can't go to the studio unless I have a story. What should I do? Oh, right. Alice has to get out of here. Plot. That's it. So it's insane. Where did I put it? I actually said about halfway through the movie, or maybe sort of just at the end of the second act, I said this film might successfully fuse an intro sequence and an ending sequence without having a story in the middle. And that is exactly what this film felt like. I did not feel like the intro ever stopped until it got to the final act. And then it's like, okay.
It's set piece the movie.
Yeah, it's strung together purely by its set pieces. So I can honestly say it does not have a plot. And it's almost impressive with how much it manages to actually continue to be a film without
how much it continues to not do. It's impressive at how much it doesn't do.
Yeah, it completely fall apart. Nothing makes any sense. I mean, there's probably been more coherent plots made up by kids on a playground, playing cops and robbers or something like that. It's you shot me. Yeah, but I got back up because I got, special armor or something like that. It's just
that's Alice.
Yeah. That's Alice. It's also Barry. In Barry's death scene.
True.
Boromir Burton, who takes 1,000 shots and still gets up and kills the bad guy.
I love the way how he puts his arms out after he shoots one dude. Like, you can kill me properly now. I killed one guy. Like, keep shooting, Barry. You're an idiot.
With the smuggest of grins. Right. Again, I was just kind of like, that is not Barry Burton.
I mean, I'm not really sure what else to go into. We could talk about the look and the sound of the movie, the general aesthetic. I mean, the only last note that I've got,
I have so many notes still.
I'll let people just continue to exhaust their thoughts then. But
I'll just look through them and try
the one major one that
thoughts.
I wanted to just add a slight positive was that the score is actually pretty decent. In particular, there's a leitmotif that keeps coming back that gives this film a more solid identity compared to the others. Sort of like these rising low strings, which is funny because it's very similar to a track from Outbreak called Thanatos is Born, as it turns out. But that I found quite cool and kind of catchy in a weird way. But other than that, it's same old level of aesthetic quality, not overthought, but not really thought about at all either, to be honest. Adam, you say you've got notes. Have at it, I suppose.
It's just a stream of information, really. Like the last Plagueis fight in Moscow goes on for 10 minutes. Like, that's annoying. Because nothing happens really in it. One person dies.
There's a lot of whipping back and forth with no actual
couple of jobbers that you don't know are just
right.
They're going to die.
Red Shirt 1 and 2.
Yep.
Yeah.
With the most
don't include sign language if you aren't going to commit to actual sign language in your movie.
Wow. Is that a thing?
I mean, don't include a deaf character if you're going to really phone in the sign language. I think it's insulting.
To be honest, I'm not au fait with it, but that is pretty awful, yeah.
Well, I'm not super up on it, but they basically just use single words.
Right.
Like, for their whole sentences, they'll just say one word.
Ugh.
Like, come on. Like, there was no... Especially if you have a clone group of people. Like, are you really including, like, deaf people and stuff in your clone group? Like, what is that helping you with? Maybe... Is it giving you better combat data? Who knows? The liquor was stupid. It looked good until they showed its scale.
The mega mushroom liquor.
Yeah, when it was on the building and I didn't realize it was as big as it was, I was like, oh, the liquor, that's pretty cool. And then it jumped down, I was like, oh, it's trash.
It completely defeats the purpose of a liquor as well. Because
right.
I know these aren't the games, but the whole symbol of liquors in the games is that, this is something you don't want to mess with. Avoid it or be stealthy, but just don't get entangled with it. What happens in this movie? Well, it's about 600 times bigger and they shoot it directly into the
Right.
head.
And it's not
while
blind
jumping over
or
it.
anything. It's clearly can pinpoint everybody. It's just stupid.
Yeah, it was just kind of, again, it was one of those things where they're throwing it in and it's like, well, you know this from the games, but now it's bigger and, isn't that scary? And it's like, no, it isn't.
Yeah, right.
But I mean, as far as other aspects of the film, the fact of the matter is that it does look good and it does sound good. That's obviously not something that a film can, solely rely on, but it's at least something as you're kind of going along with the rest of the absurdity. I think the effects overall, I mean, the CG stuff is not anything special, but as far as obviously there's a lot of practical effects and practical sets, I do enjoy that. I was particularly interested in the Magini Executioner fight.
Yeah.
When they got the two of them fighting Alice and Ada. I was just curious exactly how they made that, because I was just thinking, well, they had to make obviously the Magini's really big. I was wondering, did they do any kind of forced perspective or scaling? Obviously, there would have probably been some green screen involved in that, but I was just curious because I was like, oh, they obviously need to make the executioners look huge, like really much bigger than cars. So did they actually make smaller cars, or was this just maybe a bit of a shortcut in the computers? I'd love to know, but there's as far as actual sort of filmmaking in the practical effects sense, there's loads here to sort of digest and pour over. It's really fun in that respect. And yeah, the soundtrack is really enjoyable as well. I mean, throughout the film, and to be honest, throughout the series, it's always felt like a series made in the early 2000s. Despite the fact that this was made in 2012, it still feels like it was made in 2003 in a good way. And then the final chapter also feels like it's made in 2003 in a bad way. So overall, it still at least looks good and sounds good. It's just, if you're not that you would be going into this series expecting any kind of cohesive plot or endearing characters, but at least it looks nice.
Yeah, I mean, it has the highest.
More if you'll sit with me.
It has the highest budget, so I suppose a lot of that went on making it look nice. To be fair,
yeah, it didn't look horrible. It looked like it was perfectly adequate in its like effects and the look of the movie.
I think we got a little more time for a few more highlights before we move on. So, Adam, feel free.
I got a couple more. So the Umbrella HQ had that big vent outside that, when they blew it up, destroyed the entire facility. Why is that outside of the facility?
Star Wars logic.
I know,
Exactly.
but even worse than a Death Star. Like, at least the Death Star had to be like a 1 in a million shot. This was just like an entirely unguarded big vent. I'll blow this up. The whole place literally explodes.
I also have one more thing to say. The last fight was completely unrealistic between Jill and Mila.
It looked horrible.
A monk versus a dual-wheeled ranger, the monk would always win. I'm sorry. Okay, there's just no question. Okay, the monk would always win. Jill would have won that one. Moving on.
That fight went on for 6 minutes, by the way.
Wow, the longest 6 minutes in my life.
Yes.
Speaking of fight scenes, I actually kind of liked like super powered up Rain. It doesn't fit a Resident Evil film.
But why was she like that? And when they said release the other Las Plagas, they were just weak as crap and zombies.
Because Paul W.S. Anderson doesn't know what a plot is and just wanted a fist fight. I think we had the briefest ghost of the Mortal Kombat films came back for 2 seconds.
Yeah. Luckily, the zombies can swim as well, so they were able to get her.
Oh, God, don't. Oh.
And nobody died from hypothermia, which was good.
I think that's just because I just like Michelle Rodriguez, to be honest. Looking at my biases, I would have rather watched a film series based around her and her asshole characters rather than Alice.
My very last note is just, why is Wesker dressed like that? Because he's wearing that weird black body glove type thing. You're like, why is he wearing that?
It's lifted from RE5, isn't it?
Yeah,
it is, but it just looks
coat.
so weird in real life. Like, because he's not like a combatant, really. Like, why is he choosing to wear that?
My last note is new cryptid, the mermen of Antarctica.
Obviously, as well, this film finishes not, in the Arctic or wherever. It finishes at the White House, right?
Amazing.
And all the characters are there. Wesker looking particularly swole.
This
you've got
is actually
Leon
very
there
important,
and Ada
yes.
there. And it's a bit, again, another pan out to this massive landscape, and you're thinking, oh, it's like the end of Two Towers when you see Mordor. You think, oh, now we're seeing what the final act's going to be, and by the time we get into the next film, we've completely cut past that. It's all happened. We completely missed whatever they were doing there.
We
They're
pan
just
out to
zombie helms.
thousands of zombies and flying stupid creatures.
It's insane. I mean, the film is insane with how many scenarios it has. I don't know if any of you have ever kept a dream log. If you've ever tried to actually write your dreams after you kind of wake up and stuff like that. Kind of feels like that, where it's just kind of nothing makes sense, nothing ends. Everything is beginning again and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Maybe that's where Paul Anderson got it. He just kind of woke up and wrote it one day.
Alice
said,
was knocked out again. It was just
yes.
yeah.
He's like, right, send that off to Sony. We've got another hit. But yeah, I mean, it ends a weird way, and just sort of I had expectations that maybe it would follow on directly after. I mean, this film followed on directly after the previous one, so it wasn't out of the question.
Well, then I suppose at some point down the line we'll have an interquill to take place between Retribution and the final chapter and show you what happened in those few weeks.
Don't tempt them. Don't give him ideas. Don't give them ideas. Stop.
Right, I'm gonna wrap this one. We'll move on to the final chapter. On that note, Steve, what are your final thoughts on Retribution?
Oh God! Right, so this film would have been vastly improved if they had just thrown out all of the existing characters, all of the existing plot elements, and just had Richard O'Brien do a big old death, big old. I'm determined to push the Crystal Maze angle, because I will watch Crystal Maze, but it's Saw with zombies. Richard O'Brien would kill it. For our American listeners, that's the guy who played Riff Raff in Rocky Horror Picture Show. Bald guy. Just look up Crystal Maze on YouTube. It's banging. Theme tune is a belter.
Yeah.
But as an actual film, right, it's garbage. It's enjoyable popcorn garbage if you're not invested in the Resident Evil universe. Otherwise, you could be a Resident Evil and go, oh, it's that character I know. Oh, wait, no, it isn't. Although I will give its credence when it actually does commit to doing an action scene that's not just slow-mo every 5 seconds. I did occasionally enjoy it. For example, when Alice and Ada are in the little suburban house having a shootout with the bad guys that all look like, Umbrella Gestapo. And, despite the rest of the podcast, I actually enjoyed that fist fight with Rain at the end. Other than that, everything else is crap. I feel bad for the poor young actress who got roped into this film, who has a disability probably. And, there's only so many times we can go lol clones for a film plot and to excuse actors coming back.
Oh, don't worry. We've got a little bit more of that still to come.
I know.
James, your final thoughts on Retribution?
Oh, man. That's what happened in Paul W.S. Anderson's head just before making this movie.
Basically. Alright, so Jordan, final thoughts on Retribution?
The film is dumb as rocks. It survives purely off its spectacle. But, I mean, it's not clever, but it's not boring, especially in comparison to the rest of the films.
Yeah.
All I would say is that I hope that you hated all of those iconic Resident Evil characters from the games that they brought into the movies, because the film certainly will make you hate them. I mean, if this is your first impression with, Ada or Leon or Barry Burton, I mean, you've got the absolute worst introduction to those characters. And it does a disservice to it. But besides that, it's a more palatable film out of the bunch, and it's at least got some action. If you want some cheap action, you can stick this on and you'll be fine. You could even have it on mute. You're not going to miss any story.
And Adam, any final thoughts on Retribution?
I'll pretty much just echo what everybody else said. It's I can see how it could be entertaining in a stupid way.
Yeah.
It definitely moves at a decent pace, and it's got a lot going on in there. It's just not good from our point of view, and I guess from the general public's point of view. You said it was the worst performing one?
No, I don't think so.
No, not okay. I don't remember. But I know it didn't do massively well because the next one had a big cut in its budget, I believe.
I know. I think Apocalypse is the lowest rated one, which is...
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Wait, Apocalypse was the second one, right?
Yeah. The one that we
Yeah,
actually kind of enjoyed.
rather enjoyed that one,
Yeah.
which is funny.
So,
And Retribution is the one that I've enjoyed the most since that one. I would take this over Extinction and over Afterlife.
Sure. I get it, because it doesn't... Yeah, I understand where you're coming
It's
from.
not-
Because it doesn't...
It's not boring. It is bad, but it's not completely boring.
Exactly. It's not a boring movie, at
Yeah.
least. For it not having any plot, it still does stuff, and it's entertaining to see all the different areas, no matter how much it doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
In terms of like canon, or even its own movie canon, which is insane. But yeah, I get where you're coming from. I didn't like it, but it wasn't the worst experience.
Yeah, basically.
Before we springboard into the next film, can I ask you a quick question? This is directed at you because you have the most experience with Resistance besides myself. Would you say this is the outfit that Jill's like movie-esque outfit is based on, but it's got like a million more belts? I know this is a weird question to throw out there, but this is her outfit. See, this is the one where I was like, "That's a Resistance outfit without sunglasses and belts."
Yeah, I think that's this one, isn't it? Yeah.
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 Was that one called Retribution as well, or am I going
I
crazy?
think the outfit is actually called. Yeah, there you go. Sunny in the chat. Jill's outfit is called Retribution. So yeah, it is a direct.
I actually want to eat my own glasses in rage. Oh.
But yeah, coming out of, as we said previously, the Silent Hill Film Club episode, which is either out now or will be out in a couple of weeks. This was lovely to watch compared to the second Silent Hill film, which was just so drab and boring. But yeah, it doesn't mean it's a good film, unfortunately. But it's not as bad as Afterlife. That's the final point. We are finally here. We have arrived at the final chapter. Once again, written and directed by Anderson. Had a budget of 40 million. Adam, as you pointed out, it's a much lower budget. In fact, with the exception of the first film, it's the lowest budget of the entire franchise. It was released on the 23rd of December 2016, originally. And then the 25th of January 2017 in France. And then the rest of the world got it meted out from there. It earned 13.9 million on its opening weekend in the US, which is the lowest of the series. It finished on 26.8 million in the US and Canada, which is the lowest of the series. But it did do 285 million worldwide. Yes, 285 million, which is the largest return worldwide for the franchise. And the film ended on $312 million overall, which is the highest grossing film of the series, and pushed the series past the $1 billion mark. It has a 37 on Rotten Tomatoes and a 49 on Metacritic, which is the highest rating for an entry in the series, according to the website. Getting out there now, everyone who's rated it on the website is wrong. This is the worst one in the entire franchise.
Absolutely.
I think I said it in a previous episode as well. I think I said, oh god, Retribution's so bad, and I didn't think the final chapter was quite as bad, but my opinion has definitely flipped. Watching this one back was just absolutely miserable. Yeah, once again, how do I even start the plot of this one? Yes, I think it takes place 3 weeks after Retribution. I think that's a detail that is specifically in the novelization is never actually specifically called out in the film. Alice is wandering around the wasteland of Washington after being betrayed by Umbrella or something, I guess.
She woke up once again.
She wakes up again, yep. Conveniently falls down a hole where she comes across the Red Queen, who tells her there's an antivirus in the hive back at Raccoon City and she needs to get it before yet another countdown clock runs out.
You mean the Red Queen that was trying to kill her the entirety of the last film, Si?
Right. Yeah, there's some very big issues with
You've got
plot.
this wrong, Steve. We now disregard all previous movies.
Right. So, yeah, this film opens with yet another juxtaposition-y kind of, my name is Alice, here's everything you need to know. This time, it's all completely different. The origin of the T-Virus is completely changed. The use for the T-Virus is completely changed. We're introduced to James Marcus, which is a nice nod, I guess. I think he's the only character in this film, with the exception of Claire, who's returning from Afterlife, who's a video game character, but he's barely in it, so he doesn't really count. And yeah, so that retcons the major plot points of Apocalypse and really starts to tear lots and lots of holes in the plot. Is this the first time that everybody watched the final chapter? As I said, I've watched it once before and I thought it was okay, but not so much this time around. James, you obviously saw this one before. How did you feel about it previously compared to now?
I couldn't keep up with it. Like, I am really trying to rail it in, but I couldn't keep up with it. It was just, there was so much happening, and again, it just felt like a second Retribution movie, right? With some kind of weird added storyline. Again, I got down my notes that my name is Alice, and this should have been called the Alice story because no one else matters.
Yep.
You know,
especially this one.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, it's crazy.
And it's so clear that at this point, do you know, action hero franchises, they can work well when the character is put into danger, but Alice is never put into danger other than the first couple of movies, right? And he never brings anything new, so you always know she's going to win, which is why it gets boring, which is why your eyes drift from the screen and you turn on your phone and you have a look at Reddit or you go on Twitter like I was. In fact, at the time, I was completing the Choose Your Own Adventure stuff. I was just amending some things while I was watching the movie. I was barely keeping my eyes on it because it just wasn't interesting.
Were you watching this one speed boosted as well, James? Just out of curiosity. Man,
yes, I did. Yeah,
that's big brain moves. Props.
Man's a genius.
I do want to bring something up though that was pretty cool. Now, clearly, this film had a lower budget, so they had to make some cuts, and one of those cuts was using something that all horror movies should be using, and he didn't use since the first two movies, and that's lighting. This will likely be the only positive thing I say about this film. He actually uses lighting pretty good in this film when it comes to the horror aspects, especially during what I call the meat room. The monsters in that room were pretty cool, and they were original and unique. I'd like to know
They were Bloodshots from RE6.
Yeah. Oh, were they? Okay, cool. Well, I liked them. They were kind of cool. But yeah, that's pretty much the only nice thing I'm going to say about this movie, as it completely lost me as a summmy. And I also put here that it's just a second Extinction movie as well, because they kept using the same kind of... and also, it had the... I don't know what to call it. I don't know what effect it would call it. I used to call it the Last of Us effect. Right, but it's but why during a zombie apocalypse are buildings just falling apart? I don't get it. Right, like I don't get it. Like, if buildings are just sinking into the ground because of a zombie apocalypse, I don't get that. But yeah, we'll talk more about it because I can feel my brain just kind of vibrating right now. So go on to somebody else.
You're right, though. It's very hard to focus on this film at times. I've been a little bit under the weather the last few days, and the first time I tried to watch this, I sort of kept drifting off. And that, I mean, say what you will, you can make a joke about the film. That was probably just me being exhausted. But I stopped it and was like, okay, I'm not paying enough attention. And I'm only like 20 minutes in or something, right? So I can just rewatch it. So I stopped it, and it came up with the clock at the bottom, and I was 50 minutes in. I was like, what? How am I 50 minutes in? Nothing has happened. Nothing has happened at all. And it's not like time flew because I was having fun. I was waiting for the film to start. Adam, what's your previous experience with this? Did you see it when it came out or not?
No, this was my, first and last time
Fantastic.
watching.
Steve? Have you seen this one before?
This is my second watch of the film. The first time was when was Film Club episode 2? It was around then.
About 6 months ago.
I picked up a box set because I hadn't seen this film, so I grabbed the box set of the lot to fill out my collection, and I got curious, and that first time watching it 6 months ago on DVD, so I watched the same DVD again.
Mm-hmm.
He's not getting Blu-ray prices.
And obviously, Jordan, I know this is your first time watching it as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I didn't even know that it came out for a long time. Like I knew that they were making a final film, but as far as when it actually came out, the launch was not pronounced. It just sort of felt like it kind of came and went, and it was just one of those things like, oh, okay, well,
yeah, it kind of was. Despite the fact that it was like quite successful from a money perspective, obviously, as I pointed out, but it was...
That's insane. I can't believe that it got that many people into cinemas.
There's actually like a sly reason for that. I was looking at the facts on like the IMDb facts.
Naturally.
And it was one of the only full series to be converted into Tamil, which is the native language of India.
Oh.
And they actually had a song produced in Tamil just for the movie, which was hugely successful in India. So everyone in India went and saw the movie.
Huh.
That's why they made so much money.
Oh.
Imagine if the cut in India is actually like a really good film. Like it's actually changed dramatically.
Have you watched
and it
any
was
Indian films?
Well, now I know Resident Evil is getting, Tamil translations. Absolutely.
There's just a funny little fact, though. That's pretty interesting.
No, that
Yeah, I didn't see that one. The one fact that I grabbed a hold of, which explained a lot of what I hated about it, is that because of the budgetary restraints, a lot of it was filmed handheld, which is why I found this film very... it made me feel queasy at points. And again, I've been under the weather anyway, so maybe that's to blame. But it's like... The amount of shots in this one is like double the stuff in Retribution, I felt like. And I don't know, there's just nothing in most of the shots. I don't know what I'm meant to be looking at. The locations are nothing. They're so boring, and I can't get a sort of lock on what's going on around them. It's just a lot of nothing happening, but a lot of nothing for the most part of the film. It's just a series of events until you get to the hive, and then it's slightly slower series of events. Steve, what are your general thoughts on sort of the final chapter and the setup and stuff like that?
I've never seen Mad Max Fury Road. I understand that was a big thing at the time these films were made.
Mm-hmm.
Am I right thinking that was also mostly handheld, shaky cam stuff? Or
I could believe that. Yeah,
it was filmed in that kind of style.
Right.
Because the fact we get a direct Extinction sequel is peculiar, really. Considering the narrative was going in a very different direction, it's almost like Code Veronica to 4 levels of narrative whiplash. Instead of a stock market, it's just lol, I was a baddie all along from Wesker.
Yeah.
Right. So going into this, I was not expecting much the first time, and the second viewing, pretty much the same. The only thing I really could take away with it was whenever the characters are speaking, there is apparently a narrative occurring that basically boils down to they all get angry at each other and then move further on. Now, to Dr. Isaac's credit, like I don't know why. Maybe it's just the water I was drinking or the Coca-Cola or whatever. Whenever he was on screen, I was mesmerized. But I think that's just the actor's talent for owning a scene. Otherwise, it felt like whenever it was just action or stuff, it felt like filler sequences. Like, you know, in 90s, like video games which had FMVs, like Command and Conquer, you'd finish a mission to be like, oh, random truck drive or a random explosion or a gunfight. That's what it felt like 90% of this film was to me. Like, you know, the odd bit of exposition and then 90s FMV drama. It was crap. Then, like everyone says, we get to the hive and, you know, if if Dr. Isaacs isn't on screen, I wasn't really bothered. That's only because he had smug English power, which draws Steve into just listening. He's a git. I like him. You know?
He was the shining thing about Extinction. I think we all agreed. Or
Mad Priest in a car, man. Well, you know, I'd watch that film. I just watch him being a complete nutcase. That's much better than anything that like Mila Jovovich and friends are doing.
I remember that being my reaction the first time I watched it as well, that he was the best part about it. Whatever I felt about the film and how that may have changed, I always knew that he was the best thing about Final Chapter, and that's still true. But yeah, like a lot of the dialogue in this is basically non-existent. Like Alice meets this group and reunites with Claire, and I think, I don't know, they say what, like 16 lines between them, and then the film moves on to more action sequences. Or at least that's what it feels like. There's a whole bit where Claire just kind of is like, oh, I'm shacking up with one of them, and it's so unnecessary. Just like Anderson just given up on writing legitimate dialogue. The only things you can write are exposition. So that's why the Red Queen and the Scot basically 90% of the dialogue of the film. Adam, what's your general thoughts to the sort of setup of the final chapter?
It's just so diametrically opposed to the rest of the series. It doesn't make any sense. Like, and we've said that a lot, but this one really doesn't. It's just, I don't get it. It's,
guys, do you see what this is doing to Adam? You see what this is doing?
Why was it called the T-virus if it was made as a cure for something? You don't call the cure something a virus. Imagine that. Oh, you've got the cold. Don't worry. Here's a virus for you. Like, I don't want that.
I mean, we had this back in, Apocalypse, didn't we? Where the T-virus was the cure for some. What was she suffering with? What was Angie's problem? In
Who bloody knows?
I don't know.
For the sake of argument, fibromyalgia, and now it's aging. It's totally different disease. I can't stop swearing. Sorry.
It's fine. It's understandable. I just don't understand why he thought it was okay to be like, you know what? I'm just going to throw all the other films in the trash. I mean, I know no one cares.
He just doesn't even think about it. It doesn't even matter to him.
I guess not.
I mean, when he starts every movie with an expo dump, he can do what he wants because he just gives you a fresh version of events.
Mm-hmm.
This expo dump in this movie was nearly 5 minutes.
Thank you for timing them.
We can't even pull the video game. We can't even pull the video game defense of unreliable narration, can we? Because it's always Alice.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That's all you need to tell us is just like, oh yeah, I'm Alice and I can pretty much do anything. Let's on with the show. Why is in the decimated world, in the White House or wherever she is, I don't know where she is, but she goes down and there's that old school printer running saying, "Hello, Alice." Like, what's that about? Like, why do you have an old ass printer when you can just turn all your own monitors on whenever you want?
They clearly found an old printer and they were like, let's use that in the film.
Yeah. That's where the budget went.
Yep.
It's a tax write-off.
They don't even give us... correct me if I'm wrong, but they don't even give us one line of exposition about where the kid, Jill, Leon, any of them went.
Again, that's part of the course, though, isn't it? When you move to a new film in the franchise, a bunch of characters disappear and they don't bother to explain it.
If they're not in the expo dump, they're out.
Yeah, like Angie, funnily enough, talking about her from Apocalypse. In the novel, it explains what happens to her, which is deeply disturbing.
She gets told, like, hey, there's like 4,000 humans left on the planet. She leaves that room and immediately kills 6 people.
That's so true. That's some of the scenes that I didn't like either, is the fact that she's just randomly killing people when the whole plot of the film is you've got however many hours before there's not enough people left on the planet to save it, which, again, how exactly that works, I don't know, but...
Yeah, arbitrary time limit for the extinction of the human race, and they just blew up, 10 billion clones in the last film as well.
And in this one, they kill, like, thousands... I understand they're Umbrella employees, but are we just to believe all of them are horrendous evil people?
Yeah, exactly,
or would we try to save them and be like, hey, Umbrella went to let's try to live?
Jordan,
Netra just came up with Hi, my name is Alice and I'm a monster hunter. I hope she's playing Alice in that movie as well.
Oh, you can be guaranteed it's going to be exactly the same situation. You just got to hope that that makes 6. Jordan, what's your general thoughts on the setup of the film?
Well, initially I was optimistic with the film. I mean, Retribution kind of ended with some kind of promise that maybe something big would happen, and that big thing had already happened by the time that we actually got into this film. But the fact of the matter is that, the film's title is a promise to the audience. This is going to end. Trust me. We're actually going to have a conclusion.
Wink, wink.
You can go home satisfied after this. I mean, I was even feeling optimistic by the Screen Gems logo because it was actually changed. Watching the movies back to back, I'd always see the red and black Screen Gems logo come into the pre-roll of the film, and it's sort of one of those things where it's become emblematic of this is going to be a bad time. But all of a sudden, the Screen Gems it's like it's a daybreak, nice blue skies just above the clouds. It's almost an indication that things are moving on, things are going to change. We're finally getting out of the storm. But this film is just dross. Even despite the fact that the only thing it needs to do is to bring us closure, to bring a conclusion, kill the bad guys, save humanity, go home. It fails to do that almost immediately because you wake up with Alice in DC, and everything's decimated. There's nothing alive apart from monsters. So what's the point? And then you go to Raccoon City, and it's exactly the same thing because obviously it's all decimated and blown up and stuff. I just thought it's not much of a world left saving. At this point, most writers would have sort of an existential conversation about what humanity even is anymore when you've got absolutely nothing left to save. But no, this film still wants to have slap fights between Alice and all of the antagonists. They gotta get her moving. They've got to bring some zombies out of somewhere because, as we know, they exist in just about every environment. They swim underwater in frozen lakes, just to be used at some point in the plot. It's weird because it's like, despite the fact that it is single track, it feels so aimless. It feels like it's constantly trying to take detours and constantly trying to tell us that this is important. Like we need to have this standoff here. We need to have this fight here. And it's just like, you don't have a film. You don't have a plot. You just know that you need to finish this series. And it's so unsatisfying. And the only times that it actually kind of engaged with me, when I wasn't like the rest of you checking Twitter or checking how long the film's got left, the only time it is engaging with me was just me getting angry at the film. It's just like, come on, we don't need another set piece. I don't care about the Umbrella fun run. I don't care how many zombies you've got chasing after this giant tank. I don't care about Alice and her Mary Suzuki bike. I don't care about any of that. Just kill the bad guys, cure whatever is left of the world of the zombie virus. And let's just call it a day. And honestly, this felt like the longest 90 minutes I've ever sat through. Because it just, even when I thought it had ended, it didn't end. Even when you think the main characters have all been killed off, they haven't. clones. It's the duct tape of this series. It's everywhere. So, yeah, generally, I hate this movie. I mean, I think I hate it as much as Batman vs Superman, and it's just a film that is not even like Batman vs Superman, which is just a massive kind of mismanagement of whatever they were trying to do with all of the properties that they had. This film had no excuse to be this meandering. Right. It's only 90 minutes. You just need a couple of action set pieces. But other than that, just actually get us to the ending. It did not have anything. It had nothing for 80 minutes, and then it finally it concluded within 10.
Yeah.
It was just...
Ugh. It's kind of what we mentioned previously, is the fact that, like, you're right. Just unlike the last film, you've got one plot thread, you've got one character we're following this time, a straight line from here to here. This is where we know we want to get to. But because it's just a straight line of set pieces and there's no sort of act 1, 2, and 3, it's just painful. It's not plotted out at all. It's just a long, very straight line from one city to another and then down a bit. And then there's a room where there's a few fights and then it's over. Most of my notes, when you talk about getting angry, most of my notes is just me pointing out the plot holes. Because there's a lot of plot holes in this film.
Can we, like, get a bigger name for it, like plot vacuum or...
Yeah, that's probably about right. Plot black hole.
Black holes.
Yeah. What's the biggest volcano on the Earth? Or the biggest sea trench?
Plot vortex.
Plot Mariana's Trench.
Yeah, or, the Laurentian Abyss.
The one that wound me up the most...
singularity, yeah.
...is the Red Queen enlists the help of Alice to stop Umbrella because she is programmed, despite the fact in the last film that she's taken over Umbrella and thrown Wesker out. She can hand over the hive controls to Wesker now, apparently. That makes sense, that she's suddenly... Okay, whatever. But the main thing is, so Alice, you're gonna assist, we're going to work together, because I can't harm an Umbrella employee, you'll have to do it for me. Despite the fact that Alice spends most of the first film, and Spencer as well in the first film, are trying to escape the Red Queen's wrath and her traps. They're Umbrella employees. That's the setup for the first film.
Not to mention all of the Umbrella employees she murders right at the start.
And all the team that get chopped up by lasers. Those are all Umbrella property. And apparently they're okay to kill, but not anymore. By this
you
point,
don't understand, size. When the population gets down to 4,000, that's when it kicks in, that countermeasure.
Silly me.
How much pods count for those 4,000s in the big elevator?
They said there's thousands of them.
Like, not to be on the defensive for the Umbrella people. Do they not count in that number? Are they not counted?
No, I guess they don't count because they're waiting for the population to be wiped out before they repopulate.
Not to pull out the Clerk's defense, but they can't all be evil people. It's like not all evil people work on the Death Star and whatnot. Just watch Clerks. It's a whole bit about how not everyone on the Death Star died. Should have died because some of them would just be people trying to do their thing, pay their wage.
A lot of them would be contractors.
Yeah. C4 a lot of them, wipe them out.
Well,
apparently that's what you do.
Just kill them all. Whatever. Don't need them. Also, it's funny because, like, when he's explaining that plan to the board of directors, how is no one like, you're insane?
Exactly right.
You want to decimate the world's population with a virus that will not just decimate the population, but turn them into very dangerous things. What plan is that?
It's almost like it already happened and they came up with the plan afterwards. But yeah, I assume that...
But then Wesker was giving that dude orders, and now that dude's giving Wesker
yeah, exactly.
Orders. When did they...
Yeah, that.
I mean, two cautions for this film series of people who shouldn't watch this. People who inspect plot holes and accountants. Just don't be an accountant watching this film because you will not be able to make sense of any kind of, financial dealings going on with Umbrella. I mean, they've got something that actually changes the world. If we're to believe that this doesn't just affect, the superpowers, or, all of the really, big nations, you're looking at like complete worldwide decimation. That is their plan. How can they afford to implement something like that? No, I know the answer to that, and that is there is no answer to that. They don't want you asking those kind of questions. They just want to kind of show you the spectacle. But I mean, there obviously are quite a few different retcons going on in this film, or that there's at least some kind of bending of what has actually kind of come before it, what's motivated things. I mean, we haven't even touched upon the entire Alicia reveal,
Right.
which you can spell out like immediately. It happens at the start of the film, and then it just, even though you know it doesn't actually confirm it for the rest of the film.
No, but that scene that Adam mentioned where they're talking about Umbrella's evil scheme, I guess Anderson just figured you won't question the stupidity of that scheme because you'll be too busy thinking, oh, well, that's clearly Mila Jovovich at the end of that table, because it's very obviously her voice.
Yeah.
Stupid.
Can you sound old, dear? Try.
But
good, because we can almost make you look old.
Is that Resi Granny?
No, that's a very different voice, James.
Sorry, Gran.
But I know you said it, just don't with the plot holes, but why if the Red Queen is based on, and they specifically said the voice and the appearance of this girl, why does she have an English accent when she's a child, but not when she's a full-grown woman / an old lady? Why?
I might nosebleed. My nose.
Also, are there as many Red Queens as there are films? Because I know they've changed the actress or the likeness for that series. I know that's just because of like typical production inconsistencies and stuff. And really, the Red Queen only kind of made an important factor of how she looked in the final film. But it feels like they did change the Red Queen every single time she appeared in the films.
Yeah.
So who was the White Queen?
Christ.
In the third film?
I don't even remember that.
No, I don't remember either.
My brain could not fucking. I can't handle this crap.
First of all, this is your fault for actually trying to remember these movies. Because clearly Paul Anderson doesn't want to remember these movies.
Yeah,
that's why he makes them brand new each time.
He must not remember the amount of times in the last two movies we had like flashbacks and references to the laser grid.
And then yet again, yeah.
And then about 3 minutes after the flashback to the laser grid, we get the laser grid. Just like, what the hell is going on? This laser grid's got to be the highest paid thing in this series.
It's so ironic because
it's living off those royalties.
You have like a 2-hour film, and it might have like one particular set piece, and then like say you make like a licensed version of that film as a game, and because a game needs to be typically about maybe like 10 to 15 hours, it will recycle those set pieces because it only happens for like a minute, so you want to try it again. So it's the inverse with Resident Evil. Like the laser grid shows up maybe once in Resident Evil 4, and then the series just decided to keep making it. I know that obviously it debuted in the films beforehand, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah. But still, it's in every single, encounter that they can make. As far as like Umbrella facilities, if they can put a laser room in there, they'll do it. And it's crazy because it's like, you don't have that much time to spend in these 90-minute movies on the same thing. And yet you do it every time. It's not even that iconic at this point. It's so drawn out.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone's seen it. Everyone's seen the dogs. Everyone's seen the same things that were already established in the first film. You can't just keep repeating that, but they made a whole series out of that.
Yeah, and in the last film as well, the Red Queen says her infamous, "You're all going to die down here line.
Says it like 8 times.
Yeah, and Alice is like, oh, heard that one before.
And if you wait to the end of the credits, the screen goes
Yes.
black, flashes red, and she says it again.
And it's in this film, during the film, and it's the quote-unquote post-credits. It's just her saying that at the end of the credits.
It's a bit nihilistic, isn't it?
It's so lazy.
Yes, well, that's the word for the film.
Lazy.
Yeah, the whole film's lazy.
The whole film is very lazy.
Also, you're told that there's like 48 hours before humanity is wiped out, basically. Or the humanity that is left on Earth, not the Umbrella hidden population. And we can only assume that is they're being wiped out, like, you know, they have 48 hours before they're overrun. It's not like they're all alive and then they're all going to die at the end of 48 hours. You have to assume that they're dying as this movie's going on. So we get to the end and she says there's 4 minutes left. So how many? I mean, that 4,000 has to be down to a mere couple hundred.
Mm-hmm.
But we then follow Alice in real time for 10 minutes. So there's 4 minutes left. The movie goes on for still 10 minutes. Then she finishes her fight with the dude. And then there's some cuts of her getting out of the facility. So that's adding more time on, presumably. So the human race is gone at this point.
Thank God.
Yeah, thank God. Can we talk about the tiny vial of antivirus that immediately kills every zombie?
Yeah.
Please,
and then she's like, it's being carried by the wind, so who knows where it's going. That is not how these things work.
I mean, the zombies, you know.
You would think that the lab would have like a dispersal system or something for it. That's what I was expecting.
Adam.
But no, she goes outside and throws it on the ground, and then every zombie dies. But then, apparently, you have to just hope the wind takes it round everywhere on Earth, which is...
You see,
it's spooky zombie juice.
I can explain this in that clearly at some point during his research for these scenes, he may have played Dead Rising 1, and you get these little bees, and it has the exact same effect when you slam one on the ground, only it doesn't do it like over the world, it does it with like a 10-meter radius. It's the exact same, just like limply fall down dead.
Yeah, that's true, actually.
Oh, it's so horrible. It's like, well done, that antivirus would now just be gone. Like, it would be so dispersed, it wouldn't do anything.
Speaking of Anderson just taking things wholesale from other things, we saw the Mortal Kombat X-ray vision in the last film. This one has Sherlock Holmes' future vision, just ripped.
Oh, amazing!
Totally, I can't believe that. How can you get away with something like that?
They never explain why he's like that as well.
No, because he's mad.
He's got cybernetic upgrades, and that's the
then
one line you'll
stabbed,
get.
It says when he's getting stabbed, it's like reboot 0%. Oh my god.
Yeah, I do like how the Mad Priest clone wins. Like, surely he could have seen the one-handed man with a knife who looks a bit unhinged. But no. Okay.
Too busy being smug.
I also made that same note, Si. I was like, this is just, they're trying to do Sherlock Holmes, but worse.
Yeah.
It's just so much worse. And yeah, the best line is just when OG, what's his name again? Isaacs. Turns to his clone and just says, "I'm you idiot." Funny. And then he's just like,
I'd like to be one of the other people. I'd love to be one of the other people in that room when Alice is working out the probabilities of like what she can attack him with, and he's working out how she would fail. Because if you were Wesker, you'd be standing there while they both just kind of looked at the table for a couple of minutes and like, what's going on?
That's all right.
That's
And then
what Alice does all the
Wesker
time.
gets his foot cut off by a door and
Yeah,
dies.
there you go. And then a few minutes later, he gets killed by a door.
Like,
His foot.
the archetypal villain of the friggin' games gets jobbed off by a door.
And how does that work? Like, how does the door... Why is one... I don't...
Okay, right, I've got a theory.
He's standing up. So when the door knocks him down and then he shifts under the door with one foot, I just don't know what's happening there.
Okay, I've got a theory, guys. Okay, and I put it in my notes for Retribution, but it speaks for the entire series. This entire series was a D&D game. that it went off the rails, because doors are the worst enemy of any player character, right? They always cause the most controversy. That is the reason.
If there's ever more than one door, you're in trouble.
You're done.
And they,
I thought it was
and
an
they ripped
Achilles
off-
heel thing. Honestly, I thought it was some kind of Achilles thing. No, I'm kidding. It's complete crap. Yeah, sorry, what?
I just don't think I had the budget to actually kill Wesker any other way. They're just like, I just get a door to kill him.
Yeah,
But
just let him bleed
ripped
out
off-
through the ankle.
And they ripped off RoboCop in the process with the whole "you're fired" segment. It's like, okay,
Yeah, that's true.
that's directly lifted from
Also,
RoboCop.
she owned 51% of the company. Why didn't she fire Jason Isaacs as well?
Jason Isaacs.
Wait, that was his name, right?
Yeah.
Alexander Roland Isaacs.
Alexander
okay.
Jason Isaacs, the actor who
Jason
does the
Isaacs
monologue
is
in
an
the first
actor.
film.
Yes, you're right. I messed that up. Yeah, Isaacs. Why didn't she fire him as well?
Yeah, no, you're thinking too much. You're not
Or
supposed
why
to
didn't
think.
he just kill
You're
her?
supposed to
Like-
think during these movies.
Yeah, you're right. The takeaway is humanity is dead, but it's okay because Alice gets her memories back that she knows she never had.
Yeah, that's the most infuriating thing of all, isn't it? It was this film sort of ends with what is meant to be a touching moment that Alice gets her amnesia sort of cured. She gets all these childhood memories back. But
But she knows they're not real.
yeah, but it's also never been a driving thing of the films
True.
anyway. So it's not
never been something that
you
bothers
can't
her.
feel
She-
anything for that because it's not exactly like it's been something we've been working towards. It's just
It's not cathartic in any
No,
way.
exactly.
Because she's just a robot anyway.
Yeah.
She's always been like a robot, and she's been knocked out and woken up a million. How does she not have like flipping football players concussion? She
And she's
should
the-
have. Ugh.
Go ahead.
No, you're good. I don't want to.
She's also, despite the fact that she is the protagonist for 6 films, she is the least appealing protagonist you could imagine. The audience never connects with her.
We know
never
more
wants-
about Ethan than we know about her after 6 movies.
Yeah,
True.
you never really want to see her succeed because why? Like, what's in it for the audience? There isn't much, at stake for the audience, and to go 6 films without ever making Alice endearing is quite a feat. That is a lot of screen time where people simply don't care about the main character. That's a failure. Like, I mean, if
But they
films
bait
were
and
made,
switch her so many times, and there's clones, and she dies, and
She
she
gets
doesn't die, and
superpowers,
she gets
she
knocked
gets-
out, and she
yeah.
gets superpowers, and she's
yeah,
and it's just a mess. It's such a mess.
I mean, if it was just about any other movie series and it wasn't called Resident Evil, it wouldn't make it to 6 films because it's just not appealing in that manner. But you got this whole self-insert throughout the entire saga, and it's just mad because obviously they tried to do service to her character in the final film and bolster her backstory. We're just too far gone. We don't care about this character. The characters we did care about, you brought into the film series just to completely butcher. Any characters that we do care about is purely accidental. I don't believe for a second anybody involved in the writing process actually managed to make any of these characters endearing. But if they did, it was pure accident. It's not a satisfying end. It's probably the least satisfying end to anything that I've ever watched. And I watched Game of Thrones with everyone else. And the thing is, the worst thing about this is the fact that it's not even like there was high stakes. It's not like everybody was super invested in this. It's not like it had to reach a certain expectation. There was no expectation, and it's still under-delivered. Oh, it was just exhausting to watch.
we are starting to run a little bit long, so I'm going to move us on. We talked a lot about the absolute terrible plot. We should at least talk about...
Guys, we're done. We
no,
did
we're
it.
not quite. We should at least talk about
Shut
the
up.
production value.
Shut your mouth.
Although I don't think this will be a very long section either. I don't even with the last one I had that one singular compliment about the music. It's back to being very generic and boring this time around. This is the most boring look of the lot of them. This is the worst looking film. Everything is black or a very dark grey. Every setting, as I said, is just, it's really hard to tell where you are and what's going on because everything is just flaming, boring grey land. The cuts are just out of control. The lift sequence with all the clones around them where it all blows up. There's a bit where Alice is fighting Dr. Isaacs on that. I'm pretty sure there's like 4 shots in 1 second at one point. Yeah. It's just an awful looking film top to bottom. It's so bad. I've got no context for anyone or anything going on. It's just an absolute mess to look at. Steve, what did you think about the aesthetic?
The aesthetic of the film, by the numbers, like generic. It felt like I've seen trailers. I haven't watched Mad Max Fury Road. It's like that mixed with Fallout, mixed with the generic, like, Umbrella Lab stuff from the previous films. Crap. Yeah. Mediocre. The soundtrack, cannot remember a single thing. Nothing sticks out. The aesthetics, by the numbers by now. Like, it's almost factory floor for this stuff, which is strange for the final chapter meant to be the be-all and end-all, really. It's like Extinction 2 with less heart.
Exactly, yeah. Strange to say, but true.
Yeah.
Jordan, what do you think about the look and the sound of the film?
Well, yeah, it's fairly generic. It's definitely a step down from the last film, it's not like it was particularly lofty. But it under delivered, and as I said before, this film does feel like it was made in 2003, not 2017.
Yeah,
that right? Yeah, and it takes a lot of the aesthetics from sort of mid 2000s as well. I mean, that whole sort of first third is outside, in just desert, land, wasteland landscapes. It's very grey or amber, maybe a bit of tinge of green, but it's just like, oh, I'm so sick of this. It's like we have to get some colour, some vibrance back into it. You kind of get it a bit with when you get back to the Hive and Umbrella, but it's still massively lacking. I can't remember anything about the soundtrack. So
there wasn't one. That's why there's no songs in this movie. There's just a composer.
Yeah, just a score. Yeah.
Yeah.
And speaking of what you said previously, Jordan, about how kind of under the radar it kind of was, no one paid attention to it. 2017, yeah, it came out within like 3 days of Resident Evil 7's release. That's why everyone was too busy talking about, the brand new game that was causing a stir with how different it was and what a return it was and all of that. This film came out and everyone was just like, So that might explain it a little bit. James, what's your thoughts on the aesthetic?
Yeah, other than the lighting, which I think they probably used in the horror genre, typically when you want to save some money, you take away lighting. You try to hide a lot of things in shadow, and they did that. And there are some points in the film where you did it well when you're thinking about just the aesthetics, just forgetting everything else. Again, I bring your attention to the meat room. It was really cool. I just forget Alice is there, and everything, and like I liked how the creatures moved and everything, and soundtrack, like I agree with everybody else. There wasn't one. Like where Retribution, there was clearly like some kind of roadmap there when it came to the music. With this film, there wasn't one, and just the same as Steve, I can't remember any music from it. The film, did you say it had a lower budget?
Yeah, much lower budget.
Yeah, you can definitely see that when there is a bit of light, and just the sets as well. Like, it's very clear. It didn't, for something that is supposedly, I mean, we'll talk about this in a bit, but supposedly meant to be like the final film in the series. It just didn't really pop at all when it came to how good it looked. And I agree. Someone said earlier on that it looks like a mid 2000s film, and it does. Other than that, other than the meat room, it does look like a film that has been put on a budget. Yeah,
the meat room. I love that because I know that I actually know exactly where you mean, which is supposed to credit to the film.
Yeah, I guess.
Because like there's a I know it's hard to try and find good things about this film because the story and the plotting, well, just everything about the film is so bad. But there was some horror aspects they used there. I am like 99.9% sure we're not down to Paul W.S. Anderson, right? Because he wouldn't have done it that way. There were some cool jump moments, and he tends to use obnoxious jump scares, right? And there were just like, it was just a few golden seconds of good cinematography, right, in that meat room. Yeah, it teleported me back to what film? What game were the Regenerators in?
Regenerators are 4.
Yeah, it was a bit like that.
Yeah, in 4, like it brought me back to that. Except the Regenerators were in like a slightly lighter room, but it brought me back to that kind of feel, right, for the games.
And yeah, Adam, what's your thoughts on the aesthetics?
It was lackluster. It was. I mean, the movie was so bad. I'm having trouble even thinking about what it looked like. There was just a lot of he was going for like such like a weird like Mad Maxy type thing. There was like battle tanks. Like when were these things developed? Like the world has been ravaged, and they've got future motorbikes. Like why were they making these things in a world where there's only 4,000 people left and everyone's dead? And why do you need a motorbike that recognizes its rider?
Oh, you're asking those pesky questions again.
I'm sorry. Yeah, like like the people that are living in Raccoon City, they realize it was hit by a nuclear bomb. Remember? We're not worried about the fallout. We're not worried about irradiated ground. Or what are you eating? What are you eating in a city that was hit by a nuclear bomb? Anyway,
right.
that's not.
Yeah, no. You know what? I'm gonna close this up. There's no
just
more.
I don't want to talk about it anymore.
So, I guess I don't know. I don't think there is any final thoughts to give. Everyone is. I think we're all exhausted at this point.
I'll jump in for one thing
Sure.
about the film is that it still kept a lot of people in work in special effects and practical effects and makeup and stuff like that.
Cost
That's
people
all
their
cool.
arms, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
there is that dark side too.
And it cost someone their life.
Yeah,
like we
that's
talk
the
about
worst
the
part.
arm, but there was actually a fatality on that set. So
That's a hard point to follow up.
yeah.
My point was that obviously if there's anything to kind of redeem from this franchise and particularly this entry, because there is almost nothing redeemable from this entry, is that there's still a lot of good effects work that at least stands out, despite the fact that all the acting is poor and all the writing is poor and all the direction is poor. So there's at least that.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean,
I have some final thoughts.
Yeah, please go ahead.
It's mostly for comedy, so don't expect anything like prevalent. But yeah, my final thoughts on this film are Resident Evil, the final chapter, sorry, but not really, starring Milla, you're gonna kill a bitch. That is all.
my 2
It
word
is the
review.
final chapter of this book. Then wait till the next book.
That's right. Yeah, my 2 word review that goes on the
Wait till you watch those Wesker kids. Oh boy.
Oh jeez.
Those pesky Wesker kids running around solving mysteries.
Those pesky Weskies.
It's gonna be trash.
That's the problem as well, and we got just to like sum up.
It's the
with
same
sort of-
company though, right? Pretty much.
It is. It's Constantine Films still own the rights,
And-
which is why they're making the show.
Prior to the final chapter, they were actually going to do a TV series,
Yeah, there
but
was
then
talk,
they did the
wasn't
final
there?
chapter. So it's just going to be that. It's going to be horrible.
And more than anything, not necessarily the studio, but just the legacy of these films is somewhat damning of Resident Evil in general, because there are so many people out there that, that this is what they'll think of, and that makes it acceptable to do more subpar stuff.
I mean, it's less poisoning the well, more throwing uranium down it, and then tipping the Chernobyl elephant's foot in. It's it's dangerous. This well.
The problem is because they were so financially successful, no production company is ever going to be like, we'll do something very different.
No, exactly. Yeah.
Because it made so much money, they're going to be like, do that. That's what makes money.
Stranger Things, and put Stars members in it. It's easy.
Yeah,
Easy.
we know that, but
no,
unfortunately, executives don't look at it that way.
It's most likely that this kind of style will just continue onwards at some point, just driven into the ground until it gets to, much like this film, total formality is my wrap up for this. Everything in this film is a total formality, and that's kind of the final taste after you finish this film. I don't even feel like going, hey, we watched all of them. I just like,
we watched every film and survived. We got the Hidden Unlockable, which is a choose your own adventure.
That's right.
That's cool.
Before we get to that, I did ask the server what their favourite, or I should say what I phrased it as, which of the live action films do you like the most / hate the least? Apocalypse came wow on top. A few people also voted for the first film, and a couple people also voted for Retribution, which is fair enough. I can understand that. But Apocalypse seems to be the big winner. So in your face, Rotten Tomatoes / Metacritic, I guess.
Yeah, we had a lot of fun with that one. I mean, I remember we were like, "Oh, this is bad," but we didn't know.
Exactly.
At least I didn't know what was coming.
Be fair to the critics of 2004 or so. They had no idea what was coming up. Right, that was what they considered the worst Resident Evil film so far. They had no idea that all of the trash was going to follow it.
Yeah, I guess that's fair. All right, well, that concludes our journey through Andersonverse. We'll see you for more live-action Resident Evil, as previously mentioned, for the Netflix show when it arrives, of course. But to finish out this very long episode, we have the Choose Your Own Adventure. And now, reading the file Manager's Diary from Resident Evil 3 Nemesis, Roast Beef, who you can find at castingcall.club/m/roastbeef.
April 25th. Today's my 30th birthday. I was transferred to this facility today. I'm very happy because the work environment's very different from life in the university. May 14th. The disposal system has been completed. Using a special kind of gas that can decompose the cells of the guinea pigs. We have to try this out before beginning practical usage of the system, since it is not 100% stable yet. May 20th. While I was checking the treatment room, the door shut, and I was locked inside. I couldn't get out for 1 hour. I guess even if you have the key card, it's useless when you're locked inside. June 7th. The guinea pigs we have to dispose of are increasing. The system is not working smoothly. The laboratory staff doesn't listen to my opinions, and I'm getting extremely frustrated. July 16th. We can't dispose of all the bodies, and the quality of the liquid medicine is not good enough either. July 29th. Though the function of the system decreases, the number of the bodies we have to dispose doesn't. The infection level has increased, and the antibodies we are using is no match for the new mutation of the virus. Some of the workers have been infected by the disease. I have continued to work, but I always keep a gun with me. I must remember to save one bullet for me. I want to weep. I don't want to die here. I swear that I'll lose my mind if I imagine how painful the death will be.
Okay, so as with the previous Andersonverse films, we end things on a choose your own adventure. So if you haven't heard those, I would very much recommend that. James is the DM this time. He's written us something to go through, so I'm going to hand right over to you, Mr. Owlet, and you can take it from here.
All right. Hey, everybody. So this is, I've named it The Connections Part 2. If you did, as Cyniac has mentioned, this is just a continuation of what happened last time, which was complete bonkers.
So this is a continuation of
this
episode
was the
15,
quiz.
isn't it? Yeah, this is
This is continuation of the quiz. Yes.
Right. Okay.
Except it is a choose your own adventure. So
Fantastic.
yes, I just want to say straight up as well, this adventure has 4 potential endings. Also, disclaimer, this is a work of fiction and it's completely bonkers. Okay? So don't at me. Okay. Well, actually, do at me.
Okay, everyone in the chat, I want you to point out all the lore inconsistencies as they come up.
You can't because it's my fanfic. You can't.
I'm entrusting you.
All right. So, are we all ready?
Sure.
Let's
Yep.
go.
Yep.
The 4 of you have been busy this past year, spreading throughout the world and making connections. Big connections. All within the network. You 4 have stayed in the NEST, also known as Nest, a floating lab above the cloud cover in the Appalachian Mountains for some time now. Your personal assistant and clone, Chris Redfield, sits on the corner of his desk before you in a pinstripe suit, a shotgun slung over his back for no real reason in particular. He addresses all of you. With the failure of the Wesker program, James Marcus, William Birkin, and countless others, you have been focusing on creating the perfect organism, one that will pave the way for a better future. If anyone could do it, it would be the children of Edward Ashford themselves. We have all created a caged AI that would help you in your mission. It has simple commands to help you when you eventually monopolize this software to the world. If the AI named GP doesn't think the new parameters will create a worthwhile unit for resale, it will fail, and we will start again. I will now pass you on to GP. Good luck. Chris crushes a small pebble between his right thumb and forefinger for no reason.
Good to see he hasn't given up on those rock crushing days.
Exactly. The next voice you hear is of kind of a computer animated voice that has been scripted. You have all the knowledge and databases of previous failures. Are you ready to build your own PCP, Perfect Connections product?
PCP. I'm ready to do some PCP after those movies.
It is waiting for an input.
Yes. Wait, what happened if we say no?
Oh, you'll never know. First of all, transmission. What would be the initial way we installed this product into the general population? 1. Injection. Easily tracked and implemented. However, injection comes with a problem of volunteering. Large numbers of the general population will simply refuse the injection. Airborne. The most effective form of transmission, however, it is uncontrollable for the most part and could cause mutation throughout the animal kingdom and more. 3. Liquids. A healthy medium between the two. We can direct it through the various water companies we now own. It has the issue of being spread throughout the world, and some of the general population may start realizing the truth. Simply boiling the water will destroy our product. Which one would you like to choose?
Ooh.
Injection, airborne, or liquid?
I jumped in before, so I'll let someone else grab it.
This is a team effort, guys.
Feel free to
I
prompt
would-
someone.
Surely,
Yeah.
I mean, liquid makes the most sense, right? Because you can't just boil every liquid you ingest.
I just want to remind everybody, we are definitely playing the bad guys.
Okay.
Let's have some chaos.
Wait,
let's have airborne.
we need
Yeah,
to
I'm on
come at
team
this
Airborne.
with umbrella movie logic.
Then airborne, definitely.
Airborne,
Okay,
Airborne.
so I'm gonna go around the room. Adam,
airborne.
Jordan,
airborne.
Steve,
Airborne.
Sai.
Airborne.
Excellent. So, an animation of some kind of airborne vapor will be played on the vid screen that appears directly in front of you, spreading to various locations around the world. In the background, Clone Chris is talking about visiting the babes in Europe into his phone, a line he uses a lot to hide his illicit journeys around the world. He makes quick glances at you five and the computer, pretending like he knows what he's looking at. A simulation is provided of a city. A drone is panning through the streets. It has an affixed lens which records exhalation of organic material. Of organic material that has PCP inside of it. Almost every human has it. They are stronger and faster, though a few have additional features, such as an eye on their shoulder or large cilia attached to their faces. The camera pans back more. The city is inside a glass shelter. The screen flickers. The voice pops up again. This is optimal. Moving on. So let me go down my choices here. So you chose air, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Now that a transmission has been decided and a location picked, what other characteristics would you like the PCP to have? The options are 1. Strength and constitution. To create a stable environment for the product, we may want to embolden its already stellar survivability rate to combat unknown factors. This may also mean that the product may cause the patients to administer damage to various government structures and more. This will cause hassle for our insurance department. 2. Intelligence and wit. The product may need to prove its worth through mental acuity, improving on its design further. This could also mean that the patient wishes to achieve greater things, even potentially surpassing yourselves. Make your choices now. Strength and constitution, or intelligence and wit.
Well, we don't want to make anything cleverer than us. Screw that.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
Okay, so strength. What about you, Steve?
Oh, I'm torn. I'm going to go with strength just for the sake of herd mentality.
One of us.
Okay, excellent. So, let me go down my list here. So we got strength and cons. Okay. You have chosen an air transmission with the characteristics of strength and constitution. There is a small glitch on the screen that flashes and shows you what seems to be a hellish landscape of fire. Sorry about that. Next is application. What is your plan for the PCP? Military application. 1. Selling our product to the military would mean assurance of pay and regular clients. They will likely use the product to conquer other nations or to flex. However, it is also owned by our governing bodies that are strict on protocol and could lead to further complications in the future. Public application. 2. Releasing to the public would mean we gain a wider audience. Certain individuals may find ingenious applications for PCP, using it for use in sporting events, potentially removing the need for public transport even, due to the speed at which they travel. This also comes with the increased risk of failures due to a large population using our product. So which would you like? Military application or public application?
Public application just leaves us open to all the lawsuits in the world.
Chaos. Pure chaos.
Yeah.
Yeah. Public. You know, whatever.
If we're going the umbrella route, let's go crazy.
We're umbrella. Oh, sorry, we're the connections. We've got money. We're fine.
Oh, you're right. What, you're telling me the Umbrella Corporation didn't have enough money to build several not real cities and fill them with clones?
I mean, I'm not worried about the stock market. Are you guys?
Okay, so let's go down. So Adam.
Military.
Okay, Jordan.
The public.
Yeah, this is what I want. Let's get some division.
Steve.
Public.
Ooh.
Okay, and Sai.
Deciding vote. Well, deciding if it's a tie or not.
Public.
That's 3 for public. Okay.
You guys.
Running simulation. Success. Chris mentions to the person on the other end of the phone call that he's currently on. I hear the heat on the West Coast is pretty strong right now. You might want to avoid partying too hard in that area.
Okay.
I don't even get it. Oh, man.
Okay. Good luck, guys. Chris turns to you all, shock etched in his face as his mock telephone voice changes to a serious tenor. Seville is gone. Fires have ravaged through the streets. An explosion is heard off in the distance. Someone has managed to decrypt the virus and as some crude joke has made it into a tyrant, except one louder, also in pink. You all hive mind. It's time for Fall Guys, the sequel.
Oh, God.
That's the end of that one.
Fantastic.
There are
So we
three
made
more.
Fall Guys.
Very clever.
I cannot believe we won. We got the one good outcome.
Yeah, that's what a beautifully appropriate way to end this absolute mess of a podcast.
This was controlled nuttiness. Okay?
But it was because we were so decisive, you know, apart from like one vote where we had like, you know, one vote cast for the other decision.
Yeah.
We all worked as a team. It's
That's
umbrella, not maybe, you know?
Exactly.
Well, thank you for that, James. It was very entertaining.
Yeah,
that
you're
was
welcome.
great. Thank you.
I'll be here for the next time.
Well, nothing else remains for me but to thank our contributors. If you'd like to be part of the show, then please look into auditioning for our file readings. One way to get in touch is to email us at faspraypod@gmail.com. But of course, the best course of action is to join our Discord server, where you can discuss Resident Evil with us and other fans, and listen to the podcast live as it's being recorded. The link to the server is in the description of this podcast, and also on our social media accounts. You can follow us on Twitter at FASprayPod, on Instagram at FASprayPod, and at Facebook at facebook.com/FASprayPod. You can find the podcast on YouTube, Stitcher, Spotify, and iTunes. And if you enjoyed the show, please do leave us an iTunes review if you can. It helps spread the word. You can also support the show at patreon.com/FASprayPod for as little as $1 a month. In our next episode, we follow Chris Redfield into Europe and find ourselves trapped on a crazy island in our look back at Resident Evil Code Veronica. Thank you to the panel. You can follow all of the Pueblo people individually. I'm at Cyniac_123. Steve is at FB Steve Was Taken. Jordan is at Cerealbox64. Adam is at AdVickers01. And James is at Moist Owler OFF. And finally, thank you for listening. And you're all going to die down here.
Who on him?
It's going to be a long old episode.
So we are at, yeah.
I think I'm
we're
at 8
good
swear
on-
words.
I don't think I said any today. I think I've been
I
alright.
think
No,
I
you're
might have
fine.
got one out, but I think it's all Steve.
No,
Oh, I'm sorry. This film.
Adam,
these
you're on
films.
3.
I'm on 3. I didn't...
But Si, what you should have been counting was how many times we just
When
developed into audible groans. Yeah.
yeah.
It's like when words failed us, we all just, at least once, we all have went, oh.
I'm just amazed
you
we
can
managed
use
to
those
get
for
through with
zombie
that.
noises in the next story.
Yeah.